What would you do if a billionaire left you $0, but changed your life forever? Tonight, I'm going to tell you about Noah Reyes, a broken single father who served his last table at a dying diner, expecting nothing but another empty night. Instead, he found a hidden note that would either destroy him or save everything he loved. This is a story about kindness when no one's watching, about being tested when you're already at your breaking point, and about how sometimes the smallest gesture can echo across hundreds of lives. Stay with me until the very end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The rain came down in sheets that November night, turning the cracked parking lot of Old Maple Diner into a constellation of shallow puddles that reflected the dying neon sign overhead. The O in open had been flickering for 3 years. Nobody had bothered to fix it. Nobody ever bothered with anything at Old Maple anymore. Inside, Noah Reyes moved between tables with the practiced efficiency of a man who had learned to make himself invisible. At 34, he looked older, lines carved deep around his eyes, shoulders that carried more than physical weight, hands that trembled slightly when he thought no one was looking. The white shirt he wore had been washed so many times the collar had gone soft and gray. His black pants had a small tear near the pocket that he'd stitched himself badly, using a YouTube tutorial at 2 in the morning while Mia slept. It was 11:47 p.m., 13 minutes until his shift ended. 13 minutes until he could drive home to the apartment where his 6-year-old daughter was sleeping, looked after by Mrs. Chen from 4B, who charged $20 a night, money he didn't have but borrowed anyway, adding to a debt that grew like a living thing, feeding on his exhaustion. The diner was nearly empty, just 3 tables left. The college kid in the corner booth had been nursing the same cup of coffee for 2 hours, textbooks spread across the table, her eyes red from crying or studying or both. Noah had already told her twice the coffee was on the house. She didn't need to know that he'd paid for it himself. At table 7, a trucker named Big Mike was finishing his 3rd plate of meatloaf, talking too loud about politics, his voice bouncing off the tired walls. Noah had learned to nod and smile, to agree without agreeing, to make everyone feel heard even when he was dying inside. And then there was the woman at table 12. She had walked in around 10:30, just as the dinner rush was fading into the late-night quiet. Noah had noticed her immediately, not because she was beautiful, though she was, in that sharp, expensive way that made you aware of every cheap thing around her, but because she didn't belong. Everything about her screamed money. The tailored black coat that probably cost more than his car. The leather briefcase that sat beside her like a sleeping guard dog. The way she held herself, spine straight, chin level, as if she'd never doubted her right to take up space in the world. She'd ordered pie, just pie. Apple with coffee, black. She'd barely touched either. For over an hour she'd sat there, her hands folded on the table, her eyes following Noah as he moved through his closing routine. At first he thought maybe she was a health inspector, or maybe someone from corporate, though Old Maple didn't have a corporate, just Pete, the owner, who'd been threatening to sell for 5 years but never quite got around to it. Then he thought maybe she was a cop, or a lawyer, or someone official who would tell him something had gone wrong, that there was paperwork, that Mia... No. He couldn't let his mind go there, so he did what he always did. He smiled. He refilled her coffee even though she hadn't asked. He asked if everything was okay with her pie. She'd looked up at him with eyes that seemed to calculate something, some invisible equation, and said simply, "It's perfect." Her voice was measured, controlled, like someone who'd learned long ago that every word was a negotiation. Now, as the clock crept past midnight, she was the last one. Big Mike had left 10 minutes ago, pressing a $5 bill into Noah's hand and telling him to get something nice for the kid. The college girl had finally packed up, whispering thank you, so quietly Noah almost missed it. Just the woman in the expensive coat, still sitting, still watching. Noah approached slowly, pulling the check from his apron pocket. His feet ached, his back ached, everything ached. He'd worked 14 hours today, 6 at the warehouse loading dock, 8 at the diner. Tomorrow he'd do it again, and the day after that, and the day after that, until something broke. Until he broke. "Can I get you anything else, ma'am?" His voice was gentle, practiced. the voice of someone who'd learned that kindness sometimes paid better than efficiency. She looked up at him, and for a moment, something flickered across her face. Recognition, maybe, or satisfaction, or something else he couldn't name. No, thank you. She reached for her briefcase, pulled out a wallet that was probably worth more than everything Noah owned. The pie was lovely. You've been very attentive. Just doing my job, ma'am. Is that all it is? She tilted her head slightly. A job? The question caught him off guard. Most customers didn't ask questions like that. Most customers didn't ask questions at all. He hesitated, unsure what she wanted. I try to treat people the way I'd want to be treated. That's all. She nodded slowly, as if he'd confirmed something. Then she stood, gathering her coat and briefcase with practiced efficiency. She left 3 $20 bills on the table, exact change for a $7 check. No tip. Noah felt the familiar drop in his stomach, the little death that happened every time a table stiffed him. He knew it was stupid to expect tips, knew that people had their own problems, their own reasons. But God, he'd been counting on it. He'd been counting on every dollar tonight because Mia's school had sent home another notice about the field trip next week, and the fee was $35. And he'd promised her she could go, that she wouldn't be the only kid left behind again. Thank you for coming in, he managed, his voice steady despite everything. Drive safe. The woman paused at the door, rain visible beyond the glass, her hand on the handle. She turned back, and in the ugly fluorescent light, her face was unreadable. You remember names, don't you? She said. Ma'am? The college girl. You called her Sarah, the truck driver. Mike, you remembered. Noah shrugged, uncomfortable with the observation. Doesn't everyone? Something that might have been a smile touched her lips. No, she said quietly. They don't. Then she was gone, disappearing into the rain and the night, leaving Noah alone in the empty diner with the smell of old coffee and the weight of another day survived, but not one. He moved mechanically through his closing routine. Cleared table 12. Stacked the dishes, wiped down the surface. The 320s went into the register. He tried not to think about the $35, about Mia's face when he'd have to tell her sorry, honey, maybe next time, even though they both knew next time never came. He lifted the plate where the pie had been, barely touched, and that's when he saw it. An envelope. Cream-colored, expensive paper, the kind you only saw at weddings or funerals or important legal documents. His name was written on the front in precise, elegant handwriting. For the waiter who remembers names. Noah's hand shook as he picked it up. His first thought was that it was a complaint, that he'd done something wrong, that this was how people delivered bad news now. His second thought was that it might be money, but he dismissed that immediately because people didn't leave tips in sealed envelopes, and anyway, she'd already left exact change, no tip, message clear. He looked around the empty diner as if someone might be watching, as if this were a test or a joke or a mistake. Then, because he had to know, because the not knowing would eat him alive for the rest of the night, he slid his finger under the seal and opened it. Inside was a single piece of cardstock, heavy and expensive, with words typed in a clean, professional font. Noah Reyes, this is not charity, this is not pity, this is a proposal. I have been observing you tonight. I watched you pay for that girl's coffee with your own money. I watched you calm an angry man with patience you didn't have to give. I heard you on the phone with your daughter, Mia, right? Telling her you love her, that you'll be home soon, using the gentle voice of someone who knows that words can be shelter. I left no tip because I wanted to test something. I wanted to see if you would treat me differently when I walked out that door, if your kindness would crack. It didn't. You wished me a safe drive home even though I'd given you nothing. I need someone like you. My company needs someone like you. The world needs someone like you. Come to Ward Industries tomorrow at 10 a.m. Ask for me at the front desk. Bring nothing but yourself and an open mind. This is not charity, it's an opportunity. What you do with it is entirely up to you. Celeste Ward, CEO, Ward Industries. At the bottom of the card was an address in downtown's financial district, where the buildings touched the sky, and people like Noah didn't exist except as the invisible hands that cleaned offices and served coffee and kept the machinery of wealth running smoothly. Noah read it 3 times, then a fourth. His mind refused to process the words properly. They kept sliding away, rearranging themselves into something that made sense, because this didn't make sense. This was the kind of thing that happened in movies, in stories, in the desperate daydreams of people who'd given up on real hope and survived only on the fake kind. Celeste Ward. He knew the name. Everyone knew the name. Ward Industries was one of the biggest tech companies on the East Coast. Artificial intelligence, green energy, venture capital, a dozen other things Noah didn't fully understand but knew represented the kind of money that could buy countries. And she'd been sitting in Old Maple Diner, watching him, testing him. His first instinct was that it was fake, a scam, some elaborate identity theft scheme. His second instinct was to throw it away, to pretend he'd never seen it, because hope was dangerous and disappointment was worse than no hope at all. But as he stood there in the empty diner, the envelope trembling in his hands, he thought about Mia, about the field trip form sitting on their kitchen table, about the eviction notice that would come if he was late on rent one more time, about the medical bills from when she'd had pneumonia last winter, still unpaid, still growing, about the way she'd asked him last week, in that small voice children use when they're trying not to want too much, if maybe someday they could have a Christmas tree, a real one, not just the picture she'd drawn and taped to the wall. He folded the card carefully and slid it into his pocket, next to his dying phone and the $5 bill from Big Mike. Then he finished closing the diner, turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked out into the rain. The drive home took 23 minutes through streets that got progressively worse, buildings progressively more tired, until he reached the Garden Terrace Apartments, a name that mocked itself, as there was no garden and no terrace, just a 4-story brick box slowly surrendering to time and neglect. He parked his 15-year-old Honda Civic in the spot marked 2C, the paint so faded you could barely read it. The engine made a sound like grinding teeth when he turned it off. He sat in the darkness for a moment, rain drumming on the roof, trying to organize his thoughts into something coherent. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. Ward Industries. Celeste Ward. It had to be fake. It had to be. But what if it wasn't? He climbed the stairs to the second floor, his legs heavy with exhaustion. The hallway smelled like old carpet and someone's cooking, something with curry, probably the Patels in 2E. At his door he paused, listening. Silence. Good. Mia was asleep. Mrs. Chen opened her door before he could knock, as if she'd been waiting. She was 76, thin as paper, with eyes that saw too much. "She's been asleep since 8:30, Mrs. Chen whispered. "No nightmares tonight." Relief flooded through him. The nightmares had been bad lately. Mia dreaming about her mother, about the accident, about losing Noah too. He'd held her through too many 3 a.m. panic attacks, promising her that he wasn't going anywhere, that she was safe, that everything would be okay, lying, always lying, because he didn't know if any of it was true. "Thank you, Mrs. Chen. I'll get you the money tomorrow, I promise." She waved a hand, cutting him off. "You give me when you have it. The baby needs you more than I need money. Now go. You look dead on your feet." He wanted to argue, to insist, to maintain some dignity, but he was too tired. He just nodded and slipped into his apartment. It was small, very small. Studio apartment that the landlord generously called a 1-bedroom, because there was a curtain you could pull across to separate the sleeping area from the living area. 340 square feet of space for 2 lives. The kitchen was 3 feet of counter and a hot plate. The bathroom was the size of a closet. The window looked out onto a brick wall. But it was clean. God, it was clean. Noah made sure of that. And it was warm, and it was theirs. Mia was curled up on the bed they shared, buried under her favorite blanket, the purple one with stars that was getting too small for her, but that she refused to give up. Her dark hair spilled across the pillow, and in sleep she looked peaceful in a way she rarely did awake. 6 years old and already worried about money, about making things harder for Daddy, about being good so he wouldn't leave like Mommy did. It broke his heart every single day. Noah changed quietly, pulling on sweatpants and an old t-shirt, moving by muscle memory in the darkness. He sat on the edge of the bed, careful not to wake her, and pulled the envelope from his pocket. In the dim light from the street lamp outside, he read the card again. "This is not charity, it's an opportunity." 5 years ago, he would have laughed. 5 years ago, he'd been someone different. Noah Reyes, software engineer, $30,000 a year salary, wife he loved, baby daughter, a future that looked bright and wide and full of possibility. They'd had plans, a house, maybe another kid, vacations, normal things, human things. Then one night, black ice, an intersection, a truck that didn't stop. Emily died on impact. Noah spent 3 months in the hospital. When he came out, everything was gone. The medical bills had eaten their savings. His job had moved on. His skills had aged out in an industry that measured careers in months, not years. The settlement from the truck company had barely covered Emily's funeral. He'd tried to rebuild. God, he'd tried. Sent out hundreds of resumes, took online courses, networked. But nobody wanted a developer with a 3-year gap and medical issues and a kid who got sick a lot because she'd inherited her mother's weak lungs. So he'd taken what he could get. Warehouse work, diner work, any work, all work. Trying to be both parents, failing at both, surviving only because Mia was too young to realize how badly he was failing. And now this impossible card with its impossible offer. Come tomorrow at 10 a.m. He couldn't. He had a warehouse shift at 9. He'd lose the day's pay. And for what? A scam? A joke? Some billionaire's twisted social experiment? But if it wasn't, and he didn't go, and he spent the rest of his life wondering what if, Mia stirred in her sleep, reaching out instinctively for him. Noah lay down beside her, wrapping his arm around her small body, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, the only thing in his life that still felt real and solid and true. I love you, baby girl, he whispered. I'm trying so hard. She mumbled something in her sleep, burrowed closer, and was still. Noah closed his eyes, the card still clutched in his hand, and tried to sleep. But all he could see was that woman, Celeste Ward, sitting in the diner, watching him with those calculating eyes, seeing something in him that he couldn't see in himself. You remember names? Yeah, he remembered names. He remembered everyone who'd ever been kind to him, everyone who'd helped when they didn't have to, everyone who'd seen him as human instead of invisible. The list wasn't long, but every name on it mattered. Maybe that's what she saw. Maybe that's what she wanted. Or maybe she was just bored and cruel, and this was how rich people entertained themselves. Only one way to find out. Sometime around 3 a.m, Noah made his decision. He'd call in sick to the warehouse. He'd lose the day's pay, $48 he desperately needed. He'd put on his one good suit that didn't fit quite right anymore and was a decade out of style. He'd wake up Mrs. Chen and ask her to watch Mia for the morning, adding to the debt that kept growing. And he'd go to Ward Industries at 10 a.m., not because he believed, not because he had hope, but because Mia deserved a father who at least tried, even when trying felt like walking off a cliff in the dark, praying there'd be ground on the other side. Morning came too fast and too slow. Noah barely slept, his mind churning through possibilities and disasters in equal measure. When the alarm went off at 6:30, Mia was already awake, sitting up in bed with her stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy, clutched to her chest. Daddy, you were talking in your sleep, she said softly. Sorry, baby. Did I wake you? She shook her head. You said someone's name, Celeste. Who's Celeste? Noah's heart clenched. Even in sleep, he couldn't escape this. Just someone I met at work. Nothing important. But Mia had their grandmother's eyes, Emily's mother's eyes, the ones that could see through lies. Are you worried? A little. About money? God, she was 6. She shouldn't have to think about money. About grown-up stuff. You don't need to worry about it. She looked at him seriously, this small person who'd already learned too much about the world's sharp edges. Mrs. Chen says worry is like carrying stones. The more you carry, the slower you go. Noah couldn't help but smile. Mrs. Chen is pretty smart. Are you going to work today? This was the hard part. He never lied to Mia. Never. She'd lost her mother to a lie the universe told, that tomorrow was guaranteed, that safety was real, that love could protect you from everything. I have to go somewhere different today, he said carefully. A meeting. I'll be back by lunch. A meeting about what? About, he hesitated, about maybe making things a little easier. For us. Her eyes lit up with something dangerous. Hope. Like you getting a better job? Maybe. Or maybe nothing. I don't know yet. I just have to go see. She nodded slowly, processing this. Then, in the way children did, cutting straight through to the thing that mattered. Will you be safe? Yes, baby, I promise. It's just a meeting in an office. Okay. She hugged Mr. Hoppy tighter. Can I have cereal for breakfast? And just like that, the world was simple again. Cereal, breakfast, normal things. Noah made her breakfast, off-brand Cheerios with milk that would expire tomorrow, and got her ready for school. Mrs. Chen agreed to take her to the bus stop, waving off his thanks and his promises to pay her back as if money were nothing, as if kindness were free. By 8:30, Mia was fed and dressed and walking hand in hand with Mrs. Chen down the hallway. She turned back at the stairs, her small face worried. Daddy? Yeah, baby? Whatever happens at the meeting, I love you anyway. His throat closed up. I love you too, more than anything. Then she was gone, and Noah was alone with the decision he'd made in the darkness, the card that still sat on the counter, and the suit hanging on the back of the bathroom door. He showered in water that ran cold after 2 minutes. He shaved with a razor that pulled more than cut. He put on the suit, dark blue, from Emily's funeral, smelling slightly of mothballs, and a white shirt that had a faded stain near the collar he hoped wasn't visible. In the mirror, he looked like someone playing dress-up, someone pretending to be the person he used to be. At 9:45, he locked the apartment door and walked down to his car. The Honda started on the third try. The check engine light glowed its perpetual warning. He had a quarter tank of gas and $12 in his wallet. The financial district was 20 minutes away in good traffic, 40 in bad. Noah drove carefully, aware that one mistake, one accident, one ticket he couldn't afford to pay would topple the whole precarious tower of his life. The buildings grew taller as he drove, glass and steel monuments to success and ambition and money. So much money that it became abstract, meaningless, a different language entirely. Noah's stomach twisted with each block. He didn't belong here. These were buildings for people who'd never worried about rent, who'd never had to choose between medicine and food, who'd never worn shoes with holes they covered with cardboard. Ward Industries occupied floors 40 through 52 of the Sterling Tower, a spike of silver glass that caught the morning sun and threw it back like a challenge. Noah parked in a public garage 3 blocks away because he couldn't afford the parking at the building, $25 for the first hour, and walked the rest of the way. The lobby was marble and gold and the quiet hum of wealth, a fountain in the center that probably cost more than his life. Security guards who watched him the way guards watched people who didn't belong. His hands were sweating. He approached the front desk where a young woman with perfect hair and perfect makeup and a perfect smile looked up from her computer. Good morning. Welcome to Sterling Tower. How can I help you? Noah's voice came out steady. He was proud of that. I have a meeting at Ward Industries, 10th floor, 10 o'clock. Name? Noah Reyes. She typed something, her smile never flickering. And who are you meeting with? This was the moment. This was where it would fall apart, where she'd look confused, where he'd realize it was all a mistake or a joke or a dream. Celeste Ward. The woman's fingers paused. She looked up at him, really looked, and something in her expression shifted. Surprise maybe, or curiosity, or assessment. One moment, please. She picked up a phone, spoke quietly, listened, nodded. When she hung up, her smile had changed. It was real now, uncertain. Mr. Reyes, please take the elevator to the 50th floor. You'll be met there. Thank you. Good luck, she added, and he didn't know if she was being polite or if she knew something he didn't. The elevator was glass on one side, showing the city falling away as he rose. Noah watched the ground shrink, watched his old life get smaller and smaller until it was just one tiny point among millions, indistinguishable, forgettable. The doors opened at 50 with a soft chime that sounded like money. A man in an expensive suit was waiting, mid-40s, black, with the kind of presence that made you stand straighter without meaning to. He extended a hand. Mr. Reyes, I'm Marcus Thompson, Ms. Ward's executive assistant. Thank you for coming. She's waiting for you. Noah shook his hand, aware of his own calluses against Thompson's smooth palm. Is this real? Something that might have been amusement flickered across Thompson's face. Let's find out. Follow me, please. They walked through spaces that didn't feel like offices so much as temples to success. Glass everywhere. Art that Noah recognized from museums he'd taken Mia to on free days. Views of the city that made you feel like a god. And people. So many people moving with purpose and confidence and expensive clothes, talking about markets and acquisitions and projections, speaking languages Noah had once known but had forgotten. Finally, they reached a corner office. Thompson knocked once, then opened the door. "Mr. Reyes, Miss Ward." The woman from the diner sat behind a desk the size of Noah's entire kitchen, but she wasn't looking at papers or computers or any of the trappings of power. She was looking at him with those same calculating eyes, seeing something he still couldn't name. "Thank you, Marcus. Please hold my calls." "Of course." The door closed with a soft click, and Noah was alone with Celeste Ward. She stood, walked around the desk, and gestured to a pair of chairs by the window. Not the formal interview setup, but something more casual, more human. "Sit, please. Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." "You're terrified." It wasn't a question. Noah decided honesty was all he had. "Yes." "Good. That means you're smart." She sat across from him, not behind a desk or position of power, but as an equal, or at least pretending to be. "Did you bring the card?" He pulled it from his pocket, worn now from being held all night. She glanced at it and nodded. "I meant every word. This is not charity. This is not pity. I have a problem, and I think you might be the solution." "I don't understand." "I know. Let me explain." She leaned back, her fingers steepled. Ward Industries is successful, very successful. We make billions of dollars a year developing technology that changes the world. But we've gotten disconnected. We operate at such a high level that we've forgotten what it means to actually help people. Real people. Not markets. Not demographics. People. Noah listened, still waiting for the catch, the twist, the moment this turned into something ugly. 2 years ago, Celeste continued, I launched the Second Chances Initiative. The goal is simple. Identify people who've fallen through the cracks of our economic system. People with potential, with character, with something to offer, and give them opportunities to rebuild. Job training, education, employment placement, financial support. Not charity. Investment. That sounds good, necessary. It's failing. The words were flat, factual. We've spent $40 million and helped exactly 73 people. 73. Do you know why? Noah shook his head. Because the people running it don't understand struggle. They understand poverty as a statistic, not as a reality. They see people like you as problems to solve, not as humans to respect. They create programs that look good on paper and fail in practice. She leaned forward, intense now. Last night, I was tired, exhausted. I'd spent 14 hours in meetings about the initiative, listening to consultants tell me what poor people need, and I realized none of them had ever been poor. None of them had ever worked 2 jobs. None of them had ever had to choose between rent and food. So I left. I got in my car and drove until I found the kind of place I used to know, when I was someone different. Noah's heart was pounding. You found my diner. I found you, and I watched you treat every single person with dignity. The girl who couldn't afford coffee. You paid for it yourself. The trucker who was angry and loud, you calmed him without condescension. Your daughter on the phone, the love in your voice. And then when I left you nothing, when I tested whether your kindness was transactional, you still wished me a safe drive home. She paused, letting the words land. I don't need another consultant, Noah. I don't need another expert with a degree who's never struggled. I need someone who understands what it means to be invisible. Someone who treats people like people, not problems. I need you. The silence stretched out. Noah's mind was racing, tripping over itself, trying to catch up. To do what, exactly? To run it, the Second Chances Initiative. To be the community outreach director. To take everything we've built and make it actually work. He almost laughed. Would have if it weren't so absurd. I'm a waiter and a warehouse worker. I don't have any qualifications for... You have the only qualification that matters. You give a damn, and you know how to see people. I don't have a degree. I didn't even finish. I don't care about degrees. I care about character. I watched you demonstrate more character in 1 hour than most of my employees show in a career. Noah shook his head, overwhelmed. What would this even mean? What are you offering? Celeste pulled a folder from beneath her chair, placed it on the small table between them. Salary of $75,000 a year, full benefits, health, dental, vision, 4 weeks paid vacation, and a full scholarship to any school in the state for your daughter, Mia, right? The name hit him like a physical blow. How do you? You said her name on the phone last night. I remembered, because that's what we do, isn't it? We remember names. Noah opened the folder with shaking hands, saw the contract, saw the numbers that seemed impossible, obscene, life-changing, saw words like comprehensive health coverage and educational endowment and retirement benefits, things he'd stopped believing were real. Why? The word came out broken. Why me? You don't know me. You don't know if I can do this. I could be anyone. You could be my mother. Celeste's voice changed, became softer, more human. 35 years ago, my mother was a waitress in a diner just like yours. Single mother, 2 kids, working herself to death for pennies, and one night, a customer noticed, really noticed, saw her, helped her, changed everything. She stood, walked to the window, looking out over the city. That customer was the founder of this company. He gave my mother a job, not out of pity. Out of recognition that talent and character don't have prerequisites. My mother became one of the best executives this company ever had. And when she died 5 years ago, she made me promise something. Celeste turned back, and Noah saw tears in her eyes that she didn't bother to hide. She made me promise to keep looking, to keep seeing, to never let success make me blind. So yes, Noah Reyes, I sat in your diner and I tested you, and you passed. Not because you were trying to, but because being decent is just who you are, even when no one's watching, even when it cost you something. Noah couldn't speak. His throat was too tight, his chest too full. I'm not asking you to decide right now, Celeste said. Take the folder home, read the contract, think about it. Talk to Mia. Take a week if you need to. But know this, I'm serious. This is real. And if you say yes, you'll change hundreds of lives, maybe thousands, starting with your own. Noah looked down at the folder, at the impossible promise it contained. $75,000. Benefits. A scholarship. A life where Mia could just be a kid, where he could be home for dinner, where they could have a Christmas tree and medicine and shoes without holes. I need to think, he managed. Of course. This is too much, too fast. I need time. I understand. Marcus will give you his card. Call him when you decide, or don't. The offer stands either way. Noah stood on shaking legs. The city stretched out beyond the window, vast and indifferent, and suddenly, impossibly full of hope he didn't trust. Ms. Ward. Celeste, please. Celeste. Thank you. For seeing me, for even considering Noah. She smiled, and it transformed her face into something warm. I'm not doing you a favor. You'd be doing me one. Remember that. He left in a daze, barely aware of Marcus pressing a business card into his hand, barely aware of the elevator descending, barely aware of walking back to his car. The folder felt like it weighed nothing and everything. The contract inside might as well have been written in a foreign language for all the sense it made to his scrambled brain. He sat in his Honda, in the parking garage, and finally let himself shake. Let himself feel the enormity of what had just happened. Let himself imagine, just for a moment, saying yes. And then he thought about Mia, about being home for dinner, about her having a real school, real opportunities, real choices, about her not growing up the way he had, afraid, invisible, always one crisis away from collapse. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Mia home from school, all good, take your time. He looked at the time. 11:47 a.m. Exactly 12 hours since he'd found the card under that plate. 12 hours since his life had cracked open like an egg, spilling possibilities everywhere. Noah drove home slowly, carefully, The folder on the passenger seat beside him like a passenger with an opinion. He didn't know what he was going to do. Didn't know if he was brave enough to say yes or smart enough to say no. But for the first time in 5 years, he felt something he'd forgotten existed. Hope. Dangerous, terrible, beautiful hope. The apartment felt different when Noah walked through the door at noon. The same 340 square feet, the same worn carpet, the same water stain on the ceiling that looked like a map of somewhere he'd never go. But the folder in his hand changed the gravity of everything, made the walls feel both smaller and more precious, like he was seeing his life from the outside for the first time. Mia was at the kitchen table with Mrs. Chen, practicing her letters. She looked up when the door opened, and her whole face brightened in a way that made Noah's chest ache. "Daddy, you're home early!" He crossed the room and kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. Meeting didn't take as long as I thought. Mrs. Chen was watching him with those sharp eyes that missed nothing. The meeting went well. Noah set the folder on the counter, face down, casual. It was interesting. Interesting good or interesting bad? I'm not sure yet. He turned to Mia, who was looking between them with the worried expression children wore when they knew adults were speaking in code. "Hey, baby girl, how was school?" "Fine. We learned about butterflies. Did you know some of them fly thousands of miles? Mrs. Patterson said it's called migration, and they know the way, even though they've never been there before." "That's pretty amazing." "Yeah." She went back to her letters, carefully tracing an uppercase B. "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Is the meeting why you look scared?" Mrs. Chen made a soft sound in her throat. Noah knelt beside Mia's chair so they were eye level. "I'm not scared, honey, just thinking about some big decisions." "What kind of decisions?" "How did you explain this to a 6-year-old? How did you say that a stranger had offered to change their lives, but accepting might mean stepping into a world where he'd drown, where he'd fail spectacularly and drag them both down harder than if he'd just stayed in his lane?" "Grown-up work stuff," he said finally. "Nothing for you to worry about." But Mia had inherited her mother's ability to read him like a book. "Is it about money?" "Mia, because Mrs. Chen says we shouldn't worry about money so much. She says you work too hard and I should tell you that." Noah looked over at Mrs. Chen, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "Mrs. Chen is very wise," Noah said carefully, "but it's my job to worry about money so you don't have to." "But what if the thing you're deciding makes it so you don't have to worry so much?" The question was so direct, so perfectly aimed at the heart of everything that Noah couldn't find an answer that wasn't a lie. Mrs. Chen stood, gathering her things with practiced efficiency. "I should go. Let you two talk." She paused at the door, one hand on the frame, and looked back at Noah. "Whatever's in that folder, whatever decision you're making, trust yourself. You've kept this girl safe and loved for 5 years with nothing but will and heart. That counts for something." Then she was gone, leaving Noah alone with his daughter and the weight of impossible choices. Mia went back to her letters, but her concentration was fractured, her B's coming out lopsided. After a minute, she put down her pencil and looked at him with Emily's eyes, dark and serious and far too old for her face. "The field trip permission slip is due Friday," she said quietly. Noah's stomach dropped. He'd been so lost in the chaos of the past 12 hours that he'd completely forgotten. The $35. The promise he'd made. "I know, baby. I haven't forgotten. It's okay if I can't go." Her voice was small, practiced, the voice of a child who'd learned too young how to be disappointed gracefully. "Madison said field trips are boring anyway." "Madison's wrong. Field trips are important. You should go." "But you're going. I promise." The words came out with more certainty than he felt, because if he said yes to Celeste Ward's offer, $35 would become nothing, a rounding error, the kind of money he wouldn't even think about. But if he said no, if he let fear keep him safe and small, then $35 was still a crisis, still a choice between her field trip and keeping the lights on. That night, after Mia was asleep, Noah sat at the kitchen table and opened the folder. The contract was 23 pages long. He read every word, twice, looking for the trap, the catch, the fine print that would explain why this was too good to be true. But the language was clear, almost generous. $75,000 annual salary, full health benefits with no waiting period, 4 weeks paid vacation, performance bonuses up to 20%, and the scholarship, a full ride to any private school in the state, tuition, books, everything, renewable through high school. There was a job description, community outreach director. Responsibilities included overseeing program development, client intake and assessment, partnership building with community organizations, budget management, staff supervision. It required building relationships with people who'd been forgotten by systems designed to help them. It required understanding struggle from the inside. It required being him. He found his old laptop, a dinosaur from his previous life that took 5 minutes to boot up, and searched for Celeste Ward. The results were overwhelming. Articles about her rise to CEO at 32, youngest in the company's history. Features about her aggressive expansion into green energy. Profiles calling her ruthless, visionary, brilliant, cold. A Forbes interview where she'd talked about her mother, the waitress who'd become an executive, the woman who'd taught her that talent had nothing to do with pedigree. It was all real. This wasn't a scam. Celeste Ward had sat in his diner, watched him work, and decided he was worth betting on. The question was whether he could bet on himself. He looked around the apartment, the peeling paint, the furniture from thrift stores, the crayon drawing of a Christmas tree taped to the wall because they couldn't afford a real one. Then he looked at Mia, sleeping peacefully in their shared bed, her small chest rising and falling, Mr. Hoppy clutched in her arms. What kind of father would he be if he said no? If he chose fear over possibility, safety over hope? But what kind of father would he be if he said yes and failed? If he proved that people like him didn't belong in those glass towers? If he lost this chance and ended up worse off than before? Noah pulled out his phone and stared at Marcus Thompson's business card. It was nearly midnight, too late to call, too early to know what he'd say if he did. His phone buzzed with a text. Unknown number. This is Celeste. I know you're awake, thinking in circles. Stop. The only wrong answer is the one based on fear. Sleep on it. CW. He stared at the message for a long time. Then, because he didn't know what else to do, he replied, How did you get my number? Her response came immediately. Marcus is very thorough. Also, your phone bill is 3 months overdue. One of the first things we'll fix if you say yes. Now go to sleep. Despite everything, Noah smiled. Then he turned off the phone, climbed into bed beside his daughter, and tried to rest. The next morning, he made his decision. He called Marcus Thompson at 8 a.m. before he could change his mind, before fear could talk him out of it. Mr. Thompson, this is Noah Reyes. I'd like to accept the position. There was a pause, then something that sounded like satisfaction in Thompson's voice. Excellent choice, Mr. Reyes. Can you come in this afternoon? We'll need to handle paperwork, run a background check, discuss start date. Say 2 o'clock? I work at the warehouse until 6. Not anymore, you don't. Call them. Give notice. We'll pay you through the transition. It was that simple. That fast. One phone call, and his life changed direction like a car taking a turn too sharp, tires squealing, hoping the physics worked out. Noah spent the rest of the morning in a daze. He called the warehouse, told them he was giving his 2 weeks' notice. His supervisor, a decent man who'd always treated him fairly, sounded genuinely happy for him. He called Pete at the diner, got his voicemail, left a stumbling message about moving on, thanking him for the opportunity. He didn't mention where he was going or why. It felt too fragile still, too likely to shatter if he spoke it out loud. At 1:30, he put on his funeral suit again and took Mia to Mrs. Chen's apartment. I have to go back to that office, he told Mia, kneeling in the hallway outside 4B. This is important, okay? This is about making things better for us. Are you going to take the job? Her eyes were wide, hopeful, scared. I already did. Really? Her whole face transformed. Really, really? Really, really. But it's going to be different, baby. I'll be working in an office, wearing suits, being around people who are different from us. It might be hard. Will you be happy? The question stopped him cold. Would he be happy? He didn't know. He knew he'd be terrified. Knew he'd feel like an imposter. Knew every day would be a battle against his own certainty that he didn't belong. But he also knew that when he came home, he'd actually be present. That Mia would have opportunities he'd never dreamed of giving her. That maybe, for the first time since Emily died, they could stop just surviving and start actually living. "I'm going to try," he said, "for both of us. I'm going to try." She hugged him fiercely, her small arms around his neck. "I'm proud of you, Daddy." And God help him, he believed her. Ward Industries felt less intimidating the second time, though Noah's hand still shook as he rode the elevator to the 50th floor. Marcus Thompson met him with a warm handshake and a folder even thicker than the first one. "Welcome aboard, Noah. May I call you Noah?" "Please." "Excellent. We have a lot to cover today. First, the boring but necessary legal items. Background check authorization, standard procedure, nothing personal, direct deposit information, tax forms, benefits enrollment. Then we'll discuss your start date and initial training schedule." They spent 2 hours in a conference room, Noah signing documents and trying not to feel overwhelmed by the scope of what he was agreeing to. The benefits package alone made his head spin. Health insurance with a $5 copay. Dental coverage that included orthodontics. Mia's crooked front teeth could be fixed. Vision insurance, life insurance, disability insurance. Things he'd stopped believing were real. "Now," Marcus said, sliding another packet across the table, "the education scholarship for your daughter. This is administered through the Ward Foundation separately from your employment, so even if you left the company, Mia's education would remain secure. I'll need you to fill out these forms indicating your school preferences." School preferences? The scholarship covers tuition, books, uniforms, extracurriculars, and meals at any private institution in the state. I've included a list of our partner schools. Oakmont Academy is excellent. Small class sizes, strong arts program, very nurturing environment for young children. Or if you prefer something with a STEM focus, wait. Noah's brain was struggling to process. Private school? Her public school is fine. She's doing well there. Marcus smiled gently. Of course, if you prefer to keep her where she is, the scholarship will be held in trust for future use. College, graduate school, whatever she needs. The choice is entirely yours. Private school. Noah had never even considered it. That was for other people's children, children whose parents could afford things like piano lessons and summer camps and tutors. But now it was possible. Now Mia could have teachers who weren't overwhelmed and exhausted, classrooms that weren't overcrowded, resources that weren't rationed. Can I think about it? Absolutely. No rush. The important thing is the support is there. Marcus checked his watch. We have one more item on today's agenda. Miss Ward would like to see you in her office. Noah's stomach tightened. Is something wrong? On the contrary, she wants to discuss your first project. Celeste's office looked different in afternoon light, warmer somehow, less intimidating. She was on the phone when Marcus led Noah in, speaking rapid fire about quarterly projections and market positioning. She gestured for Noah to sit, finished her conversation with crisp efficiency, and hung up. "Noah, how are you feeling?" "Honestly, terrified." She laughed, and it was genuine. "Good. Overconfidence is dangerous. Healthy fear keeps you sharp." She came around her desk, sat in the chair beside him instead of across. "I want to talk about how we're going to do this. Your official start date is Monday, but before then, I need you to understand what you're walking into." Okay. The Second Chances initiative is failing because it's designed wrong. We've been trying to help people from the top down, creating programs we think they need instead of asking what they actually need. Your job is to flip that model. Talk to the people we're supposed to be helping, listen to them, build programs around their reality, not our assumptions. Noah nodded slowly. That makes sense. Here's the challenge. My board and my executive team think this is a waste of money. They want to shut it down. I've bought us 6 months to prove it can work. If we can show real results, not just numbers, but actual lives changed, we keep going. If not, the program dies and I lose the political capital to try again. The weight of that settled on Noah's shoulders. No pressure then. Enormous pressure, which is why I need you to be honest with me, always. If something isn't working, say so. If you need resources, ask. If you think I'm wrong about something, tell me. I didn't hire you to agree with me. I hired you to be real. I can do that. I know you can. That's why you're here. She pulled a tablet from her desk and handed it to him. This is the current state of the program. 73 people helped over 2 years. Here are their files. What we did for them, what worked, what didn't. I want you to read through these this weekend. Call 3 of them. Ask them directly what we did right and what we did wrong. Noah took the tablet, feeling its weight. 73 lives. 73 stories like his own. Then Monday morning, 9 a.m., you and I meet. You tell me what you learned and what you want to change. We'll start building the real program together. Just like that? Just like that. Noah, I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm going to trust you. I'm going to give you the resources and the authority to do this right. All I ask in return is that you care as much about those 73 people and all the ones we haven't helped yet as you care about yourself. I will. I do. I know. She stood, extended her hand. Welcome to Ward Industries, Mr. Reyes. Try not to let us corporate types destroy your soul. He shook her hand, managed to smile. I'll do my best. Walking out of that building, tablet tucked under his arm, Noah felt like he was carrying something fragile and explosive. 73 stories, 6 months to prove it mattered. Everything he and Mia needed writing on, whether he could do something he'd never done before, had no training for, had no business attempting. He drove home slowly, his mind spinning through everything that had happened in 48 hours. 2 days ago, he was a waiter counting singles. Now he was community outreach director at a multi-billion-dollar company with a salary that seemed imaginary and responsibility that felt crushing. Mrs. Chen had Mia doing homework when he walked in. Mia looked up, her eyes asking questions her mouth didn't. I took the job, Noah said. I start Monday. Mia's scream of joy nearly shattered the windows. She launched herself at him, and he caught her, spun her around, let himself feel happy for the first time in years without waiting for the other shoe to drop. Does this mean we can get the Christmas tree? The real one? Noah laughed, actually laughed. Yeah, baby, we can get the Christmas tree. And I can go on the field trip? You can go on every field trip. She hugged him tighter, and he felt her tears against his neck. Happy tears, relief tears, tears of a child who'd been carrying too much weight for too long and finally got to set it down. That night, after Mia was asleep, Noah sat at the kitchen table and opened the tablet. 73 files. 73 people who'd been chosen for help. He started reading. Maria Santos, single mother of 4, given job training and childcare subsidies. Employed for 6 months, then lost the job when her childcare fell through. Now back where she started. David Park, former teacher who'd been blacklisted after blowing the whistle on corruption, given legal support and career counseling, currently working part-time at a call center, overqualified and underemployed. James Wilson, recovering addict, clean for 2 years, given housing support and job placement, relapsed after 3 months when his sponsor died. Now homeless again. The stories went on, good intentions, generous support, and then life happening, the way life always did, and the safety net disappearing because programs had end dates and rules and limitations. Noah made notes on the tablet, his handwriting awkward with the stylus. But the patterns were clear. The initiative had given people fish instead of teaching them to fish. Worse, it had given them fish and then taken the fish away after 90 days and wondered why they were hungry again. Around midnight, he called the first number on Celeste's list. Maria Santos answered on the 3rd ring, her voice wary. Hello? Ms. Santos? My name is Noah Reyes. I'm calling from Ward Industries about the Second Chances initiative. Is this a bad time? Silence. Then, are you calling to tell me I owe money? Because I already told them I can't pay back the childcare subsidies. I tried, but no ma'am. You don't owe anything. I'm calling because I'm taking over the program, and I wanted to ask you some questions about what worked and what didn't, about what we could have done better. More silence. He could hear children in the background, television sounds, life sounds. You really want to know? I really want to know. She laughed, bitter. Okay, here's what you could have done better. You could have asked me what I needed instead of telling me. You could have given me childcare that didn't disappear after 6 months, like children stop needing care on a schedule. You could have understood that one bad day, one sick kid, one car breakdown could destroy everything. You could have treated me like a human being instead of a project with a deadline. Noah wrote furiously, his heart pounding. That's exactly what I needed to hear. What would have actually helped? Long-term support, flexible support. Someone who checked in and adjusted when life got complicated instead of just cutting me off. And community, other people going through the same thing. We could have helped each other if you'd connected us instead of treating us like we're all in competition for scraps. They talked for 40 minutes. By the end, Maria was crying, and so was Noah.
You're really going to change it? She asked. I'm going to try. I promise I'm going to try. Then do one thing for me. Remember that we're not broken. We're not failures. We're people who got knocked down by a system that wasn't designed for people like us. If you remember that, you'll do okay. He called 2 more people that night, heard 2 more versions of the same story. Good people, bad luck. Systems that gave up on them the moment they stumbled. By 3 a.m., Noah had filled 20 pages of notes. His eyes burned, his hand cramped, but he understood now what Celeste had seen in him, what she needed. She didn't need someone who knew how to run a program. She needed someone who knew how it felt to be the program's target, to be seen as a problem to solve instead of a person to support. She needed someone who would remember Maria Santos's face when she said, "We're not broken," who would carry that truth like a gospel. Saturday morning, Noah woke with his head on the kitchen table, the tablet still glowing beside him. Mia was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the bed, watching him with concern. "Did you sleep here all night?" "Yeah, baby. I was working." "Working on what?" How did he explain that he was trying to figure out how to help people who'd been helped badly before? That he was terrified of letting them down the way they'd been let down already? "Learning," he said finally. "Learning how to do my job right." She climbed off the bed, came to the table, looked at the screen full of notes in his messy handwriting. "Are these people you're going to help?" "I hope so." "Will you help them the way Mrs. Chen helps us?" Noah looked at his daughter, this small, wise person who saw things so clearly. "What do you mean?" "Mrs. Chen doesn't just watch me sometimes. She knows my favorite snacks. She knows I get scared during thunderstorms. She knows about Mommy. She doesn't help us like it's a job. She helps us like we're family." And there it was, the answer he'd been circling around all night. You couldn't program that, couldn't systematize it, couldn't put it in a budget spreadsheet or a quarterly report. You just had to care, had to see people as people, not problems, had to remember that behind every case file was a Maria Santos with 4 kids and dreams that kept breaking, a David Park who'd tried to do the right thing and got punished for it, a James Wilson fighting demons every single day, had to help them like family. "You're pretty smart, you know that?" Noah said. Mia grinned. "Mrs. Chen says I get it from you." Sunday. Noah spent the whole day with Mia. They walked to the park, the one with the broken swings that the city kept promising to fix. They got ice cream from the bodega, single scoops, because he still couldn't quite believe the money was real, couldn't quite let himself spend freely yet. They lay on the grass and watched clouds drift by, and Mia pointed out shapes while Noah tried not to think about Monday, about walking into that glass tower and pretending he belonged there. "Daddy?" Mia's voice was soft. "Are you going to be different now?" "Different how?" "Like, are you going to be busy all the time? Are you going to forget stuff?" Madison's dad got a new job and now he's always on his phone and he missed her dance recital. Noah's chest tightened. "I promise I won't forget. The whole point of this job is so I can be there more, not less." "Okay." She was quiet for a moment. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "That it won't be real, that something will go wrong and we'll have to go back to the way things were. And it will hurt more because we thought it was going to be different." He pulled her close, this small person who'd already learned that hope was dangerous, that good things didn't last, that the universe was not kind to people like them. "I'm scared too," he admitted. "But we're going to try anyway, because that's what brave people do. They try even when they're scared." "Is that what Mommy would say?" Noah's throat closed. They didn't talk about Emily much anymore. It hurt too much. But now he forced himself to remember,
to channel the woman who'd believed in him when he was just a broke college kid with more dreams than sense. Your mom would say that fear is just love in a scary mask, that being afraid means you care about something enough to worry about losing it, and she'd tell us to hold hands and jump together. Mia looked up at him, Emily's eyes in her small face. Then let's jump, Daddy. Monday morning arrived with October rain and the kind of cold that promised winter was coming. Noah stood in front of his closet, if you could call a corner with a hanging rod a closet, and stared at his one suit. It looked even worse in daylight. The pants were a little short. The jacket sleeves showed too much wrist. The whole thing screamed, "I don't belong here." He put it on anyway. Mia watched from the bed, already dressed for school. "You look handsome." "I look ridiculous." "You look like someone important." God, he loved her. What if I mess this up? Then you'll figure it out. That's what you always do. She said it with such confidence, such absolute faith that Noah almost believed it. He kissed her goodbye, left her with Mrs. Chen, and drove downtown through traffic that seemed determined to make him late. The parking garage, the elevator, the lobby, it all felt surreal, like he was playing a role in a movie about someone else's life. He rode up to the 50th floor, his heart pounding, his hands sweating in the expensive leather briefcase Marcus had given him on Friday, empty except for his tablet full of notes. Marcus met him at the elevator. "Good morning, Noah. Ready for your first day?" "No." "Perfect. The best ones never are. Come on, Celeste is waiting." Celeste's office was exactly as he remembered, but this time there were other people there. 6 of them, sitting around the conference table, looking sharp and successful, and like they belonged in rooms like this. They all turned when Noah entered, their expressions ranging from curious to skeptical to openly hostile. "Everyone," Celeste said, standing, "this is Noah Reyes, our new community outreach director. Noah, this is your team." His team. The words didn't compute. He'd never had a team. He'd barely had coworkers who acknowledged his existence. For the next hour, Celeste walked him through the organizational structure. His team consisted of 3 case managers, 2 administrative assistants, and 1 data analyst. They'd all been working on the initiative for over a year, implementing the programs that had failed to help more than 73 people. And now he was their boss. The hostility made sense now. He was the outsider, the nobody, the waiter who'd somehow convinced the CEO to give him a 6-figure job and authority over people with master's degrees and years of experience. When the introductions were done, Celeste stood. "I'll let you all get acquainted. Noah, I want you in my office at 3 p.m. Bring your recommendations." Then she was gone, leaving Noah alone with 6 people who clearly thought he was a joke. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, a woman in her 40s with severe glasses and perfect hair spoke up. "So, you're going to save the program?" Her name was Patricia. Patricia Huang, senior case manager, MBA from Wharton, 7 years at Ward Industries. Her voice dripped with condescension. "I'm going to try," Noah said evenly. "With what qualifications exactly?" "I looked at your file. High school diploma. No relevant experience, no management background. Just a good story and a sympathetic CEO." The others watched, waiting to see how he'd respond. This was a test, maybe the real test. Noah could have defended himself, could have gotten angry, could have pulled rank and reminded them that whether they liked it or not, Celeste had put him in charge. Instead, he told them the truth. "You're right. I don't have qualifications. I have perspective. I spent this weekend calling the people we've helped. Maria Santos, David Park, James Wilson. I asked them what we did wrong. Want to know what they said?" Patricia's expression didn't change. "Enlighten us." "They said we treated them like problems to solve instead of people to support. They said we gave them help on our timeline instead of their reality. They said we abandoned them the moment they stumbled, and they were right. Everything you've built here is generous and well-intentioned and completely wrong." The room went silent. Someone gasped. Patricia's face flushed red. "How dare you?" "I'm not criticizing you personally. I'm saying the approach is flawed. And starting today, we're going to fix it. Together. Because here's what I do have. I know what it's like to be on the other side. To be the person who needs help. To be invisible. And I know that people like Maria and David and James don't need our pity. They need us to actually listen." He pulled out his tablet, brought up his notes. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to redesign everything from the ground up. And we're going to do it by asking the people we're supposed to be helping what they actually need, not what we think they need, what they need. Patricia stood abruptly. This is absurd. I won't. You won't what? Noah's voice was quiet but firm. You won't try something different? Because what we've been doing isn't working. 73 people in 2 years. That's not a success. That's a failure with good PR. For a long moment, Patricia just stared at him. Then, slowly, she sat back down. Fine. What's your plan? And just like that, Noah stopped being a waiter pretending to be someone else. He became what Celeste had hired him to be. Someone who gave a damn and wasn't afraid to say so. The plan Noah laid out that morning was simple in concept, revolutionary in execution. They would stop treating the Second Chances Initiative like a charity dispensing predetermined aid packages and start treating it like what it should have been from the beginning. A partnership with people who knew exactly what they needed to rebuild their lives, if only someone would listen. Over the next 2 weeks, Noah's team conducted 53 interviews with people who'd been through the program. They met them in coffee shops, in parks, in their homes, anywhere they felt comfortable. Noah insisted on being present for every single one, taking notes in his cramped handwriting, asking follow-up questions that made Patricia raise her eyebrows, but eventually nod in understanding. The data analyst, a quiet man named Robert Chen, compiled the results into a presentation that Noah and Celeste reviewed on a rainy Thursday afternoon. The patterns were damning. 92% of participants said the program had helped initially, but failed to provide sustained support. 87% said they felt judged rather than supported. 74% said the rigid timelines and requirements had actually made their situations worse because missing a single appointment or deadline meant losing everything. It's a system designed to help people who don't actually need help, Noah said, pointing to the data on Celeste's enormous monitor. Someone who can make every appointment, meet every deadline, navigate bureaucracy without mistakes. That person doesn't need us. The people who really need us are the ones this system is designed to exclude the moment they have one bad day. Celeste leaned back in her chair, studying the numbers with an expression Noah had learned to recognize as her processing face. Recommendations? Tear it down. Build something new. Flexible timelines based on individual circumstances. Ongoing support instead of 90-day cutoffs. Peer networks so participants help each other instead of competing for resources. And most importantly, let them tell us what they need instead of us deciding for them. Budget implications? Higher per person cost, but better outcomes. We help fewer people initially, but actually help them. Build momentum, prove it works, then scale. The board will hate it. The board already thinks the program is a waste of money. Let's prove them wrong with results instead of trying to please them with numbers that don't mean anything. Celeste smiled, the sharp smile of someone who just decided to take a risk. Do it. You have 3 months. Show me 5 success stories, real ones, sustained ones, and I'll go to the board with the new model. 3 months. 5 stories. Everything riding on whether Noah could deliver what he'd promised. He threw himself into the work with an intensity that bordered on obsession. His days started at 6 a.m. and ended past midnight. He rebuilt the intake process from scratch, removing the dozens of forms and requirements that had turned asking for help into a second job. He created a peer mentorship program pairing current participants with those who'd successfully rebuilt their lives. He negotiated partnerships with employers willing to offer flexible hours and second chances. He personally met with every single person who applied, learning their names, their stories, their dreams. Mia saw less of him than she had when he was working double shifts at the diner and warehouse. The irony wasn't lost on Noah. He'd taken this job partly to spend more time with his daughter, and now he was more absent than ever, just absent in a suit instead of a waiter's uniform. Mrs. Chen didn't say anything, but her look spoke volumes. Mia didn't complain, but Noah could see the worry in her eyes when he came home at 9 p.m. and collapsed on the couch, too exhausted to do anything but hold her while she told him about her day in a small voice that tried so hard to be understanding. "I'm sorry, baby," he whispered one night, his guilt a physical weight on his chest. "This won't be forever, just until we get the program working right." "It's okay, Daddy. You're helping people." "You're supposed to come first. I am first, because you're teaching me that helping people matters. She was 6 years old and wiser than he deserved. Noah held her tighter and promised himself that once these 3 months were over, once he'd proved the program worked, he'd find balance. He'd be present. He'd keep the promise he'd made on that Sunday in the park. But first he had to deliver 5 success stories. The first was Maria Santos. Noah had stayed in touch with her since that midnight phone call, and when he reached out about rejoining the program under the new model, she'd been skeptical. Why should I trust you? I trusted before. Because this time you're in charge. You tell me what you need, you set the timeline. You decide what success looks like. I'm just here to provide resources and get out of your way. It had taken 3 more conversations, but eventually Maria agreed. The program provided long-term childcare subsidies with no arbitrary cutoff date, flexible job training that worked around her kids' schedules, and connection to a network of other single mothers facing similar challenges. Within 6 weeks, she had a stable job with benefits and a support system that didn't disappear the moment funding periods ended. The second was a man named Thomas Wright, a former software engineer, like Noah had been, who'd lost everything to medical bankruptcy when his wife got cancer. Noah saw himself in Thomas's defeated eyes, understood the specific shame of falling from the middle class into poverty, of having people assume you'd made bad choices when really you'd just had bad luck. I don't need job training, Thomas said at their first meeting. I need someone to give me a chance, despite the gap in my resume and the bankruptcy on my credit report. So Noah used his connections, the network he was building through Celeste's introductions and his own relentless networking, to find companies willing to look past the red flags. He coached Thomas through interviews, helped him explain the gap without sounding defensive. 3 months after joining the program, Thomas accepted a job offer at a fintech startup making $70,000 a year. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th stories came faster. A recovering addict who needed housing stability before he could maintain sobriety. A former teacher blackballed from education who needed help pivoting to corporate training. A young mother who'd aged out of foster care with no support system who needed everything: housing, childcare, job skills, and most importantly, someone who believed she could succeed. Each success built Noah's confidence and his team's buy-in. Patricia stopped questioning his decisions and started actively contributing ideas. Robert Chen's data showed that while they were serving fewer people than the old program, retention rates were 94% compared to 31% before. The costs per person were higher, but the outcomes were incomparably better. Celeste scheduled the board presentation for a Tuesday in late January, almost exactly 3 months after Noah's first day. The night before, Noah sat in his apartment reviewing his presentation for the 100th time while Mia slept. His hands were shaking. This was it. Everything came down to whether he could convince a room full of wealthy executives that the program deserved to continue. His phone buzzed. A text from Celeste. Stop overthinking. You know this inside out. Tell them what you told me. Make them see the people, not just the numbers. You've got this. CW. Noah didn't sleep that night. At 5 a.m., he gave up trying and went for a run through streets still dark and empty. The cold air burned his lungs, cleared his head, reminded him why this mattered. Somewhere in this city, Maria Santos was getting ready for work at a job she could keep because they'd supported her properly. Thomas Wright was writing code again. James Wilson was 6 months sober with stable housing. 5 people whose lives were measurably better because someone had actually listened to what they needed. That had to count for something. The board meeting was at 10 a.m. in a conference room on the 52nd floor that Noah had never seen before. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table that could seat 20. Chairs that probably cost more than his car. 12 board members in suits that made Noah's finally replaced wardrobe still look cheap by comparison. Celeste sat at the head of the table, her expression neutral, giving him nothing. Marcus had coached him. The board was split. 6 members supported the initiative, 5 wanted it killed, 1 was undecided. That one vote would determine everything. The undecided voter was a woman named Margaret Vance, 63, old money, reputation for being ruthlessly practical. She'd made her fortune in manufacturing, built an empire through efficiency and cost-cutting. She saw Ward Industries through the lens of quarterly returns and shareholder value. She was the person Noah had to convince. Mr. Reyes, the board chairman said, his voice professionally courteous and utterly cold. You have 20 minutes to present your case for continuing the Second Chances initiative. 20 minutes to justify $40 million. 20 minutes to prove that people like him deserved investment. 20 minutes to save something that mattered. Noah stood, connected his laptop to the display, and took a breath. 3 months ago, I was a waiter at a diner making $16,000 a year. I know exactly what it's like to be the demographic this program serves because I was that demographic. I know what it's like to be invisible, to be reduced to statistics, to be told you're not worth the investment. So I'm not going to talk to you about ROI or efficiency metrics or any of the language you're comfortable with. I'm going to tell you about 5 people whose lives changed because someone finally got this right. Margaret Vance raised an eyebrow. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. Celeste's expression didn't change, but Noah thought he saw the hint of a smile. He clicked to the first slide. Maria Santos and her 4 children smiling at the camera. This is Maria, single mother, working 3 part-time jobs, drowning. The old program gave her 6 months of childcare subsidies and job training. When the 6 months ended, her childcare fell through, she missed work, she lost her job. We called that a success because we'd served her. She called it a betrayal. He clicked to the next slide, showing Maria at her current job, wearing a professional uniform, pride evident in her posture. Under the new model, we asked Maria what she needed. She said long-term stability, not temporary fixes. We provided open-ended childcare support, connected her to other single mothers facing the same challenges, gave her job training that worked around her life instead of demanding her life work around us. Result? She's been employed for 12 weeks, her kids are stable, and she's paying taxes instead of using emergency services. The city wins. She wins. Everyone wins. He moved through each story methodically, making them human, making them real, refusing to let the board reduce them to numbers on a spreadsheet. Thomas Wright, whose medical bankruptcy wasn't a moral failure, but a failure of systems. James Wilson, whose addiction needed sustained support, not a 90-day countdown. Each story was specific, detailed, undeniable. The old program served 73 people in 2 years at a cost of $40 million, Noah said, pulling up Robert's data. That's $547,000 per person with a 31% sustained success rate. The new model serves fewer people, but with a 94% success rate. Within 3 years, each person we help successfully will have paid back their investment through taxes alone, not to mention reduced emergency service usage, reduced incarceration rates, and increased economic activity. Margaret Vance leaned forward. How do you scale that? We can't spend $500,000 per person if we want to help thousands. This was the crucial question. Noah had known it was coming. You don't scale it the same way. You scale it through community. Every person we help successfully becomes a mentor in the network. They help the next person, who helps the next. We provide the initial support, but the community provides the sustainability. Maria Santos is already mentoring 3 new participants. Thomas Wright is teaching coding classes to other people trying to break back into tech. The program becomes self-reinforcing. That's optimistic, Margaret said, her tone skeptical but not dismissive. What happens when someone fails? When they relapse or lose a job or stop engaging? We don't abandon them. That's the whole point. Failure isn't an end state, it's part of the process. The old model treated any setback as disqualification. The new model recognizes that rebuilding a life isn't linear. We stick with people through the setbacks, adjust support as needed, maintain the relationship. At what cost? Lower than you'd think, because the people in the network support each other. We're not paying professionals to provide 24/7 support. We're facilitating peer relationships that happen organically. Our role is to provide resources and structure, not to be the sole source of support. The board members asked questions for another 30 minutes. Some were hostile, looking for ways to discredit the program. Some were genuinely curious about logistics and scalability. Margaret Vance asked the hardest questions, pushing Noah to defend every assumption, every projection, every claim. He answered them all honestly, admitting when he didn't know something, explaining his reasoning, always bringing it back to the people. Not demographics, not statistics. Maria, Thomas, James, and the others whose names he knew, whose children he'd met, whose dreams he'd listened to. Finally, the chairman called for a vote. All in favor of continuing the Second Chances initiative under Mr. Reyes's proposed model? 6 hands went up immediately. The supporters. 5 remained down. The opposition. Everyone looked at Margaret Vance. She sat perfectly still, her face revealing nothing, her hands folded on the table in front of her. The silence stretched out, seconds becoming eternities. Then, slowly, deliberately, she raised her hand. 7 in favor, 5 opposed. The motion passes. The Second Chances initiative will continue. Relief flooded through Noah so intensely he thought his legs might give out. Celeste was smiling now, openly, that rare, genuine smile that transformed her whole face. "Thank you, Mr. Reyes," the chairman said. "The board looks forward to your progress reports." The meeting ended. Board members filed out, some stopping to shake Noah's hand, others ignoring him completely. Margaret Vance approached last, studying him with sharp eyes. "You did well, but don't get comfortable. I voted yes because the data supports it, and because you made me care about those 5 people. But if this program doesn't deliver on your promises, I'll be the first one voting to kill it. Understood?" "Understood. Thank you, Ms. Vance." "Don't thank me. Prove me right." Then she was gone, and it was just Noah and Celeste in the enormous conference room overlooking the city. "You were brilliant," Celeste said quietly. "I knew you would be, but you exceeded even my expectations." "I was terrified the entire time." "Good terror, the kind that keeps you sharp." She walked to the window, looked out at the sprawling city below. "You bought us time, Noah. Now comes the hard part, delivering on everything you promised." "I know." "Are you ready for that?" Was he? Noah thought about the work ahead, about scaling the program, about managing expectations, about all the ways this could still fail. But he also thought about Maria's smile, about Thomas coding again, about James's 6 months of sobriety. "I'm ready." "Good. Because things are about to get complicated." She was right. Over the next 6 weeks, as word spread about the program's new approach, applications flooded in. They went from having a waiting list of 20 people to over 300. The team expanded from 6 to 15. The budget increased. The pressure intensified, and the press discovered them. It started with a local business reporter who'd heard about Noah's unusual path from waiter to director. The story was supposed to be a heartwarming piece about second chances. Instead, it became a lightning rod. Billionaire CEO handpicks waiter for 6-figure job. Favoritism or vision? The headline read. The article questioned Noah's qualifications, suggested nepotism, implied that Celeste had chosen him for reasons that had nothing to do with merit. The story went viral. Suddenly, Noah wasn't the director of a promising program. He was a symbol of everything wrong with corporate America. Proof that connections mattered more than credentials. Evidence that the wealthy made decisions on whims rather than qualifications. The comments were vicious. They called him a charity case. They said he was unqualified and dangerous. They accused him of taking a job from someone who actually deserved it. They said worse things, crueler things, things Noah tried not to read but couldn't help seeing. The attention found its way to Mia's school. Other parents recognized Noah's name from the articles, started whispering. One mother pulled her child away when Mia tried to play with her at recess. Another made a comment at pickup about people who get ahead through connections instead of hard work, while staring pointedly at Noah. Mia came home crying for the first time since Emily's funeral. Madison's mom says you didn't earn your job. She says you're a cheater. Noah felt something break inside him. He'd endured poverty, exhaustion, the grinding humiliation of being invisible. But watching his daughter pay the price for his choices was unbearable. That night, after Mia finally cried herself to sleep, Noah called Celeste. It was 11 p.m., but she answered on the first ring. "I saw the articles," she said before he could speak. "I'm sorry, Noah. This is my fault. I should have anticipated. I can't do this to her." His voice was raw. "Mia is being bullied because of me, because I took this job, because other people think I don't deserve it." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe they're right. Maybe I am a charity case. Maybe I am in over my head. Maybe the best thing I can do for Mia is walk away before this gets worse." Silence on the other end. Then, Can I come over? What? Now? Yes, now. What's your address? Noah gave it to her, too tired to argue. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on his door. Celeste Ward, Billionaire CEO, standing in the hallway of Garden Terrace Apartments at 11:30 at night, looking as out of place as a diamond in a junkyard. She was carrying a bag. Can I come in? Noah stepped aside. She entered the tiny apartment, taking in the cramped space, the worn furniture, the crayon drawing still taped to the wall. She didn't comment on any of it. Instead, she walked to where Mia was sleeping and stood there for a long moment, watching the child's peaceful face. Then she knelt beside the bed, reached into her bag, and pulled out a book. A science textbook about butterflies, the expensive kind with glossy photographs and detailed diagrams. She placed it gently on the nightstand where Mia would see it when she woke up. You told me she's been learning about butterflies at school, Celeste said softly, standing. I remembered. Noah's throat tightened. Why are you here? Because you're thinking about quitting, and I needed to remind you why you can't. She turned to face him, and her expression was fiercer than he'd ever seen it. Those people mocking you, questioning you, saying you don't deserve this? They're wrong. They're wrong about you, and they're wrong about what qualifications matter. But Mia is watching you face the hardest thing you've ever faced and keep going anyway. Do you know what lesson she's learning right now? She's learning that other people's opinions don't define your worth, that courage means doing the right thing even when it costs you something, that her father is brave enough to withstand judgment for the sake of helping people who need it. She's 6 years old. She shouldn't have to learn that yet. No, she shouldn't, but she's learning it anyway because life is cruel and random and unfair. What matters is what you do with that lesson. Celeste sat on the worn couch, gestured for Noah to sit beside her. My mother faced the same thing when she took the job that changed our lives. People said she was a charity case, said she was sleeping with the boss, said she didn't deserve her position, and you know what she did? What? She proved them wrong, not by defending herself, not by arguing, by doing the work so well that eventually the criticism became white noise. It took 2 years, but eventually people forgot she'd started as a waitress. They only remembered that she was brilliant. Noah shook his head. I'm not your mother. I'm not brilliant. I'm just someone who cares. Caring is the most important qualification. Everything else can be learned. But you can't teach someone to see people as people instead of problems. You either have that or you don't, and you have it. The articles will blow over. There's already another scandal trending on social media. Next week, no one will remember your name. But the people you're helping will remember. Maria, Thomas, James, they'll remember. And the next 300 people waiting for your program will remember. That's what matters. She reached over, took his hand in hers. It was the first time she'd ever touched him outside of a professional handshake. I'm not asking you to do this for me or for Ward Industries or for your own ambition. I'm asking you to do it for everyone who's ever been dismissed, overlooked, told they don't deserve a chance. You're proof that the system is wrong. Don't let them make you doubt that. Noah looked at Mia sleeping peacefully, the butterfly book catching the dim light. He thought about Maria Santos telling him, "We're not broken." He thought about Thomas Wright coding again. He thought about all the people still waiting, still hoping, still believing that maybe someone would finally see them. What if I fail? He whispered. Then you fail trying to do something that matters. That's better than succeeding at things that don't. They sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Celeste stood. I should go. It's late. But Noah, thank you for not quitting, for trusting yourself even when it's hard. I didn't say I wouldn't quit. You didn't have to. I saw your face when you looked at your daughter. You're not going anywhere. After she left, Noah sat in the dark apartment, exhausted but no longer drowning. He thought about calling the program participants, telling them he was done, that he couldn't withstand the pressure. But then he imagined having to look Maria in the eyes and say, I gave up because people were mean to me and knew he couldn't do it. Celeste was right. The criticism would fade. What mattered was the work. He went to bed determined to weather the storm, to prove through results rather than arguments that he belonged exactly where he was. But the storm was worse than he anticipated. Over the next week, the articles multiplied. Local news picked up the story. A national blog wrote a scathing piece about billionaire savior complexes. Conservative outlets used him as an example of liberal virtue signaling. Progressive outlets criticized the program as a band-aid on systemic inequality. Everyone had an opinion, and none of them were about the actual work. Mia's situation at school worsened. Another child told her that her daddy was a fake director. A teacher made an offhand comment about qualified professionals within Mia's hearing. The school principal called Noah in for a meeting to discuss whether the media attention was creating a distraction. Noah stopped reading articles, stopped checking social media, focused only on the work. But the damage was done. His confidence, already fragile, began to crack. Then, on a Tuesday morning, everything nearly collapsed. Celeste called him at 8 a.m., her voice tight. "I need you at the hospital, now." "What? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, just come." Northeast Medical Center, 5th floor. She hung up before he could ask more questions. Noah's hand shook as he drove, his mind spinning through worst-case scenarios. Had something happened to one of the program participants? Had someone blamed the program for some disaster? He found her in a private room, hooked up to an IV, her face pale and drawn. Marcus stood beside the bed, looking worried. "What happened?" Noah asked. "Exhaustion," Marcus said quietly. She collapsed during a board meeting. Doctor says she's been running on 4 hours of sleep a night for months, not eating properly, ignoring every warning sign. Celeste opened her eyes, managed a weak smile. "I'm fine. Just need fluids and rest. But there's a problem." "The board," Marcus said. "They're using this as ammunition. Emergency meeting this afternoon to discuss the Second Chances initiative. They're saying it's distracting Miss Ward from core business, causing stress, compromising her health. They're moving to shut it down." Noah felt the floor drop out from under him. "They can't. We have a 6-month commitment. We have results." "They can do whatever they want if they claim it's affecting my health," Celeste said, her voice strained. "And they're using your press coverage as evidence that the program is more trouble than it's worth." "Then I'll resign. I'll step down, find someone else to run it." "No." Celeste struggled to sit up, and Marcus gently pushed her back down. "That's exactly what they want. They want you to quit so they can say the program failed because we chose the wrong person. It proves their point." "So what do I do?" "You fight. This afternoon you walk into that boardroom without me, and you defend the program like your life depends on it. Because it does. And so do the lives of everyone waiting for help." Noah stared at her. This fierce woman who'd taken a chance on him, who'd believed when no one else did, now lying in a hospital bed partly because she'd fought so hard for something people called a vanity project. "I can't do this without you." "Yes, you can. You don't need me to speak for you anymore. You never did." She reached out, grabbed his hand with surprising strength. "You're not a waiter playing at being a director. You're the real thing. You've been the real thing since the moment you walked through my door. Now go prove it." The board meeting was at 2 p.m. Noah had 4 hours to prepare, to figure out how to save the program without Celeste there to back him up. He sat in his office, the real office he still wasn't used to having, and stared at his notes, his data, his success stories. Then he thought about what Celeste had said that night in his apartment, about proving critics wrong through work, not words, about caring being the qualification that mattered most. And he thought about Mia's face when she'd asked if he was going to be different, if he was going to forget what mattered. At 1:30 p.m., Noah walked into the conference room on the 52nd floor. 12 board members. No Celeste. Margaret Vance sat at the head of the table now, her expression unreadable. "Mr. Reyes," she said formally, "thank you for joining us. We understand Ms. Ward's health crisis is partly related to stress from defending programs that aren't performing to expectations. We're here to discuss whether the Second Chances initiative should continue." This was it. The moment everything could fall apart. Noah stood at the head of the table, looked at the 12 faces staring at him with varying degrees of hostility and skepticism, and made a decision. He told them the truth, not the sanitized version, not the version designed to please them, the raw, honest truth about what the program was and why it mattered. "You're right," he said, his voice steady despite the terror coursing through him. "The Second Chances initiative is causing problems. It's making people uncomfortable. It's generating negative press.
It's forcing this company to question assumptions that are easier left unquestioned. And if you shut it down today, your lives get simpler, your quarterly reports get cleaner, your public image gets safer. He paused, letting the words land. But here's what else happens. 300 people currently waiting for help go back to lives that are slowly killing them. 5 people whose lives we've already changed will lose their support systems and likely fall back into crisis. And you'll prove that Ward Industries talks about corporate responsibility, but doesn't actually mean it when it gets hard. Margaret Vance's eyes narrowed. That's a harsh assessment. It's an honest one. Ms. Ward is in the hospital because she's been fighting for this program while running a billion-dollar company and dealing with a board that questions every decision. That's not the program's fault. That's the cost of actually trying to change something instead of just talking about it. So you're blaming us? Another board member asked, his voice sharp. I'm saying that change is uncomfortable, that doing things that matter is hard, that if you shut down this program, you're choosing comfort over courage, and I can't stop you from making that choice. I'm just asking you to think about what it says. The room erupted in arguments, half the board defending Noah, half attacking him. Margaret Vance let them argue for 5 full minutes before calling for silence. Mr. Reyes, you're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish to speak to this board that way. Probably both, Noah admitted, but I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of trying to please people who've already decided I don't belong here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep doing the work, keep helping people, keep proving through results that this program matters. And if you shut it down, I'll walk out of this building and find another way to do it. Because this isn't about Ward Industries or quarterly reports or your comfort. It's about people who deserve a chance and never get one. He gathered his materials, turned toward the door. If you vote to continue the program, I'll be in my office. If you vote to shut it down, I'll clean out my desk and be gone by end of business. Either way, thank you for the opportunity. Then he walked out, leaving 12 stunned board members behind. He made it to his office before his legs gave out, sank into his chair, his heart pounding, his mind screaming that he'd just destroyed everything, that he'd let his pride and his anger and his exhaustion turn him into someone who just talked himself out of the best opportunity he'd ever had. His phone rang. Marcus. What the hell did you just do? Marcus's voice was somewhere between horrified and impressed. I have no idea. What's happening in there? They're arguing. I've never seen the board this divided. Margaret Vance looks like she's trying to decide whether to have you fired or promoted. Great. That's great. Noah, you need to understand, you just bet everything on that speech. If they vote yes, you're untouchable. If they vote no, you're done. Not just at Ward Industries. Word will spread. No company will touch you. I know. Was it worth it? Noah thought about Maria Santos, about Thomas Wright, about Mia sleeping peacefully with her butterfly book, about Celeste lying in a hospital bed, still fighting. Yeah, he said quietly. It was worth it. An hour later, Marcus appeared at his door. His expression was carefully neutral. The board took a vote. Noah's heart stopped. And? 7-5. The program continues. But there are conditions. What conditions? You report directly to Margaret Vance now instead of Celeste. Monthly progress reviews. If metrics slip, the program ends immediately. And you're on probation. One more incident like today's press coverage, one more controversy, and they reserve the right to remove you. It wasn't a win. It was a reprieve. A stay of execution with conditions attached. But it was enough. I'll take it, Noah said. One more thing. Margaret wants to see you, now. Margaret Vance's office was on the same floor as Celeste's, but felt completely different. Where Celeste's space was modern and open, Margaret's was traditional and imposing. Dark wood, leather chairs, walls lined with awards and photographs of her shaking hands with presidents and industry titans. She gestured for Noah to sit, studied him for a long moment. That was either the dumbest or the smartest thing I've ever seen someone do in a board meeting, she said finally. I haven't decided which yet. Neither have I. You could have played it safe, apologized, promised to do better. Probably would have gotten the same result with less drama. Probably. So why didn't you? Noah met her eyes. Because I'm tired of apologizing for caring.
for being qualified in ways that don't fit on a resume, for believing that people deserve dignity and support instead of judgment. If this board wants someone who will play politics and massage egos, they hired the wrong person. Margaret actually smiled. That's what I thought. That's why I voted yes. I don't like you, Mr. Reyes. You're arrogant for someone with so little experience. But you're also the only person in this entire company who seems to understand that our responsibility extends beyond shareholder returns. She stood, walked to her window overlooking the city. My father was a factory worker, died at 53 from exposure to chemicals his employer knew were dangerous, but didn't protect him from. I built my fortune partly on the settlement my family received, so I understand exactly what you're trying to do with this program. I also understand why it threatens people. Change always does. She turned back to face him. I'm going to be watching you, Noah, closely. Not because I think you'll fail, but because I think you might succeed, and success makes people nervous. Can you handle that pressure? I'll have to. Good. Because if you can pull this off, if you can actually make the Second Chances initiative work at scale, you'll change how this entire industry thinks about corporate responsibility. That's worth protecting, even if it costs me political capital to do it. Noah left her office feeling like he'd survived something that should have killed him. When he got home that night, Mia was still awake, sitting at the kitchen table with the butterfly book Celeste had given her. Daddy, did you know that when butterflies migrate, they travel in groups, and the older ones teach the younger ones the route? And then those butterflies teach the next generation, so the knowledge stays alive forever? Noah pulled her into his lap, overwhelmed by the metaphor. That's exactly what we're trying to do with the program, baby. Help people who then help other people, who help even more people. So the kindness keeps traveling forward. Like what Celeste did for you? Yeah, like what Celeste did for me. Mia was quiet for a moment, then, are the mean people still being mean? Some of them, but we're going to keep going anyway, because helping people matters more than what mean people say. Mrs. Chen says mean people are just scared people wearing a costume. Noah smiled despite his exhaustion. Mrs. Chen is the wisest person I know. That night, Noah called Celeste from the hospital phone Marcus had given him the number for. She answered drowsily, the medication making her voice soft. Did they vote? They voted yes, 7-5. The program continues. He heard her exhale in relief. Thank God. I was worried they'd use my collapse as an excuse. They tried, but I convinced them otherwise. How? I stopped trying to be what they wanted and just told them the truth. It either worked, or I would have been cleaning out my desk tonight. Celeste laughed weakly. That's my influence rubbing off on you. Or maybe that was always who you were and you just needed permission to show it. Maybe. Celeste, thank you for believing, for fighting, for everything. Thank you for proving me right, for being exactly what I saw in that diner, for not letting them make you smaller. They talked for a few more minutes before the nurse came to check her vitals and Noah had to let her rest. As he hung up, he realized something fundamental had shifted. He'd stopped seeing himself through other people's doubt and started seeing himself through the eyes of the people he was actually helping. That made all the difference. The controversy faded over the next month, exactly as Celeste had predicted. New scandals took over the news cycle. The articles about Noah stopped trending. Life returned to something resembling normal, except normal now meant running a program that was actually working, actually changing lives, actually proving that the critics had been wrong. But Noah knew this was just the beginning. The real work, the sustainable, scalable work, was still ahead. And somewhere out there, more people were waiting, hoping that maybe this time someone would finally see them. He was ready. Not because he had all the answers or because the fear had gone away, but because he'd learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was caring about something enough to keep going despite the fear. And he cared. God, he cared. 6 months after that brutal board meeting, the Second Chances initiative had helped 147 people rebuild their lives. Not just helped, actually changed trajectories, created sustainable paths forward, proved that investment in human potential yielded returns that couldn't be measured only in quarterly reports. The numbers told one story: 96% retention rate, 83% of participants employed within 4 months, 71% reporting stable housing, 42 participants now serving as mentors to newer members of the program. The data was irrefutable, but Noah had learned that numbers only mattered to people who wanted to be convinced. For everyone else, you needed something more visceral, more immediate. You needed them to see faces, hear voices, understand that behind every statistic was someone's mother, someone's father, someone's child, whose entire world had shifted because someone finally listened. That's why when Margaret Vance called him into her office on a Tuesday morning in late March, Noah brought Maria Santos with him. Margaret had been true to her word about watching him closely. Monthly meetings that felt like audits, questions that probed for weaknesses, a scrutiny that never quite felt friendly even when the results were good. But she'd also been fair, backing him when the board questioned expenses, defending the program when quarterly reviews showed the investment wasn't yet breaking even. "Mr. Reyes," Margaret said when he entered with Maria, "I wasn't expecting a guest." "Maria Santos, meet Margaret Vance. Margaret, Maria is one of our first success stories. I thought you should hear directly from her what the program has meant." Margaret's expression was unreadable, but she gestured for them both to sit. "Very well. Ms. Santos, I understand you participated in the initiative?" Maria, who'd been nervous in the elevator, straightened her spine and met Margaret's eyes directly. "I did. Both versions, actually. The old one that failed me, and Mr. Reyes's version that didn't." "Tell me about that." For the next 20 minutes, Maria talked about working 3 part-time jobs and still falling behind, about the old program's rigid timelines that didn't account for real life, about her son getting sick the same week her childcare subsidy ended, about missing work, about everything collapsing in 72 hours. Then about Noah's program, about being asked what she needed instead of being told, about the peer support network that had become like family, about stability for the first time in years. "My oldest daughter wants to be a doctor," Maria said, her voice thick with emotion. "Before, I would have told her to dream smaller, to be realistic, because how could we afford it? Now I tell her to study hard because anything is possible. That's what this program gave me. Not just a job. Hope." Margaret was quiet for a long moment after Maria finished. Then she said, "Thank you for sharing that, Ms. Santos. It's important context." After Maria left, Margaret turned to Noah with an expression he couldn't quite read. "That was calculated. You brought her here to make a point." "I brought her here to remind both of us why this matters. The board loves data, but data doesn't cry when her childcare falls through. Maria does." "Fair point." Margaret pulled out a file, slid it across her desk. "The board is meeting next month to discuss expanding the initiative. If we approve it, we're talking about tripling the budget, expanding to 3 more cities, bringing on regional directors. This becomes one of our flagship programs, not a side project." Noah's heart raced. This was everything he'd been working toward. "That's incredible. What's the catch?" "The catch is that you'd need to step back from direct participant contact, become a real administrator, hire people to do the hands-on work while you manage strategy and scaling. Can you do that?" The question hit him harder than he expected. Step back? Become the kind of manager he'd built the program to avoid having? Lose the personal connection that made everything work? "I need to think about it." "I expected you'd say that." "You have 2 weeks. But Noah, understand what's at stake. If you say no, we still expand, but they'll bring in someone else to run it. Someone with the credentials you don't have. Someone who might not share your vision. Is your ego worth risking everything you've built?" "It's not ego. It's understanding what makes this work. The moment we become just another bureaucracy, we become just another program that fails people. Then don't let it become that. Scale it without losing what makes it special. That's your job. That's what leadership actually is." Noah left her office with the file under his arm and a decision that felt impossible weighing on his chest. He wanted to expand, to help more people, to prove the model worked at scale. But he also knew that the secret ingredient wasn't the structure or the funding or the data. It was the human connection, the fact that every participant knew Noah had been where they were, that he understood struggle as lived experience, not theoretical concept. Could he teach that? Could he hire people who'd care the way he cared, who'd see people the way he saw them? He called Celeste from his office. She'd been back at work for 3 months now, but he still worried every time her voice sounded tired. "They want to expand," he said without preamble. "I know, Margaret told me they were considering it. This is good news, Noah. This is everything you wanted. They want me to step back, become an administrator, hire other people to do the actual work." Celeste was quiet for a moment. "And you're afraid that without you in the trenches, it won't be the same." "I'm afraid it'll become what it was before. Another program run by people who don't understand struggle, making decisions that look good on paper but fail in practice. So hire people who do understand. Hire people like you, people who've lived it, who care about it, who'll fight for it the way you have. The program works because of what you built, not just because of you personally. Have faith in the structure you created. What if I'm wrong? What if I scale it and it falls apart and we hurt more people than we help? What if you don't scale it and hundreds of people who could have been helped never get the chance? That's the other side of the risk, Noah. Inaction has consequences too." He knew she was right. The moral calculation wasn't between success and failure. It was between helping 147 people directly or helping thousands indirectly. Between being comfortable and being courageous. "I don't know if I can do this," he admitted. "Yes, you do. You've known since Margaret offered it. You're just scared, which means it's important. Remember what I told you that night in your apartment? The only wrong answer is the one based on fear." That evening, Noah sat down with Mia and explained the choice in terms a 7-year-old could understand. She was older now, in 2nd grade at the public school he'd chosen to keep her in despite the scholarship offer, growing into someone fierce and thoughtful and so much like her mother had hurt. "So you have to choose between helping the people you know or helping more people you don't know yet?" Mia asked, her face serious. "Sort of. If I say yes, I'll have to spend more time in meetings and less time with the people who need help. But we could help people in other cities, not just here. Will you still come home for dinner?" The question cut straight to what mattered. "That's the thing, baby. I don't know. This job might get bigger and harder. I might be traveling sometimes. I might be busier." Mia thought about this, her small face contemplative. Then she said something that nearly broke him. "When Mommy died, you promised you'd always be there for me. You promised that even if everything else changed, that wouldn't. And I meant it. I mean it. Then maybe you should think about whether this new job lets you keep that promise. Because the people in other cities need help, but I need you, and maybe that's okay." Noah pulled her close, overwhelmed by her wisdom. "You're right. You're absolutely right. You come first. Always." "But Daddy?" Her voice was muffled against his chest. "You're teaching me that helping people matters. If you say no because you're scared, what does that teach me?" He had no answer for that. His 7-year-old daughter had just articulated the exact conflict tearing him apart. The next morning, he called his team together. All 15 of them now, from Patricia, who'd gone from hostile to his fiercest advocate, to Robert, whose data had proved the model worked, to the 3 peer counselors who'd been program participants before becoming staff members. "I need your honest opinion," Noah said, standing at the head of the conference table. "The board wants to expand. Triple the budget, 3 new cities, regional structure. But it means I'd have to step back from direct participant work and focus on administration. Should I do it?" The question hung in the air. Patricia spoke first. "You should do it. Not because we don't need you in the trenches, but because more people need this program than we can currently serve. Your guilt about not being directly involved is understandable, but ultimately selfish." Noah flinched at the word selfish, but Patricia wasn't done. "I was wrong about you when you started. I thought you were unqualified, that Celeste had made a terrible mistake. I was wrong because I was measuring qualifications the wrong way. You taught me that. Now I'm teaching you something. Leadership isn't about doing everything yourself. It's about building systems that work without you. If this program can only succeed when Noah Reyes is personally handling every case, then it's not actually scalable. It's just your charity project." Robert nodded. "The data supports expansion. We're at capacity here. We're turning away 3 people for every one we accept. And the model is proven. 96% retention isn't luck. It's replicable methodology." One of the peer counselors, a man named Marcus, not to be confused with Celeste's assistant, raised his hand tentatively.
Can I say something? Of course. I was homeless 2 years ago, addicted, lost. The old program gave me 30 days in a shelter and called it help. Your program gave me someone who listened, who didn't judge, who stuck with me through relapses and failures. That saved my life. And now I do that for other people. And it works because you taught me how. If you can teach more people to do what you taught me, then yeah, you should expand. Because I was worth saving, and so is everyone else out there who's still waiting. Noah felt his chest tighten. This was why it mattered. This was why the fear couldn't be the deciding factor. Okay, he said quietly. I'll do it. But I need your help. I need to hire people who get it, who care about it, who won't let it become another bureaucracy. Can you help me find them? Patricia smiled. We already started a list. People we've met through the program, people in the network who have the skills and the heart. You're not doing this alone, Noah. You never were. The expansion happened faster than Noah expected. Within 6 weeks, they'd hired 3 regional directors, all of them people who'd experienced hardship themselves, all of them committed to the model. Within 3 months, satellite offices opened in Philadelphia, Boston, and Richmond. Within 6 months, the Second Chances Initiative was serving over 400 people across 4 cities with plans to expand further. And Noah was miserable. Not because the program wasn't working. The data was spectacular. Success rates remained high. Participant feedback was overwhelmingly positive. The media that had once mocked him now profiled the initiative as a model for corporate responsibility. Ward Industries' stock price increased partly on the strength of positive press about their social programs. No, Noah was miserable because Patricia had been right. Leadership meant administration. It meant conference calls and budget meetings and strategic planning sessions. It meant hiring and training and supervision. It meant spending 40 hours a week in meetings and maybe, if he was lucky, 2 hours actually talking to the people the program served. He was good at it. That was the worst part. He had a natural instinct for managing people, for building consensus, for making hard decisions. The program thrived under his leadership, but he was dying inside slowly, the same way he'd died at the warehouse and the diner, just in a nicer office with better pay. Mia noticed. Of course she noticed. She was Emily's daughter. You're sad again, she said one night in early December, almost a year exactly since that night at Old Maple Diner when everything had changed. They were decorating their Christmas tree, a real one, 7 feet tall, the kind he'd never imagined they could afford. But Noah's mind was somewhere else. I'm not sad, baby, just tired. Shh, you're sad the way you used to be sad when you worked at the diner, like you're going through the motions, but you're not really there. He wanted to deny it, but he'd promised to never lie to her. It's complicated. The program is doing amazing things. We're helping so many people, but I missed the part where I actually got to help them directly. Now I just manage the people who help them. So do both. What? Do both. Keep your important job, but also keep helping people. Like how you still work one night at the diner even though you don't have to anymore. Noah had maintained 1 shift a week at Old Maple, more for himself than for the money. Pete had kept the job open partly out of loyalty, partly because Noah was now a regular customer who brought business contacts for meetings, but mostly because he understood that some people needed to stay connected to where they came from. That's different. That's 1 night a week. Then do that with the program. 1 day a week where you just help people instead of being the boss. You're allowed to do that, right? You're in charge. From the mouths of children came clarity that adults overcomplicated. It was so simple, so obvious. Why hadn't he thought of it? The next morning, Noah revised his schedule. Every Friday, he blocked out the entire day. No meetings, no administrative work, just direct participant contact. Intake interviews, progress check-ins, mentor sessions. The work that had made him come alive in the first place. Margaret pushed back immediately. That's not efficient. We hire case managers for that. The case managers are excellent, but I need this, not for the program. For me. 1 day a week where I remember why this matters. That's indulgent. That's sustainable. You want me to lead this for years, not burn out in 2. This is how I stay connected, stay passionate, stay effective the other 4 days when I'm doing administrative work.
Margaret studied him for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she nodded. Fine, but your administrative work better not suffer. It didn't. If anything, Noah's work improved. The 1 day a week in the trenches reminded him what they were building toward, kept him grounded in reality instead of abstraction, gave him stories to tell when he was pitching the board for more funding or defending the budget to skeptical executives. And on one particular Friday in February, it gave him something else entirely. The intake appointment was scheduled for 2 p.m. A man named David Chen, 41, former restaurant owner whose business had failed during the pandemic. The name didn't register until Noah looked up from the paperwork and recognized the face. It was the David Chen who'd loaned him $500 7 years ago when Noah was newly widowed and drowning, when Emily's medical bills had wiped them out and Noah needed a security deposit for the apartment. David had been a customer at a different diner where Noah had worked before Old Maple, had overheard Noah's desperate phone call trying to find a place to live, had written a check without being asked. Pay it forward someday, David had said. That's all I ask. Noah had paid him back within 6 months, working extra shifts, skipping meals. But he'd never forgotten the kindness, the fact that someone had helped without judgment or expectation. Now David sat across from him, older, grayer, wearing the same defeated expression Noah remembered from his own mirror 7 years ago. Mr. Chen, Noah said softly, I don't know if you remember me. David looked up, studied Noah's face, and slowly recognition dawned. Noah? Noah Reyes? The waiter from... Good God, you work here? I run the program, actually. David's laugh was bitter. Of course you do. The guy I loaned money to when he was broke now gets to decide if I'm worthy of help. That's perfect. That's just perfect irony. That's not... David, you helped me when I had nothing, when I was desperate and invisible and nobody cared. You saw me. You helped me. Now I get to return the favor. This isn't a favor. It's charity. It's pity. Noah heard his own words from a year ago, the same pride, the same shame. It's neither. It's an investment. That's what you told me, remember? You said helping people was the best investment because kindness compounds. David's eyes were wet. I don't remember saying that. I do. I remember every word. And you were right. Your $500 kept me and my daughter housed when we had nowhere else to go. It gave me stability to find better work, to keep us safe. That kindness rippled forward, and now it's rippling back to you. They talked for 2 hours. Noah learned that David's restaurant had been his dream, built from nothing, lost to forces beyond his control. That David had burned through his savings trying to save it, had lost his house, his marriage, his sense of self. That he'd been living in his car for 3 months, doing day labor, trying to maintain enough dignity to keep going. I helped so many people over the years, David said quietly. Hired people others wouldn't, fed people who couldn't pay, gave second chances, third chances, and when I needed help, everyone disappeared. So yeah, I'm bitter, I'm angry. I don't know if I can trust this. I understand. I felt the same way when someone offered to help me. It felt too good to be true, like there had to be a catch. Was there? The catch was that I had to believe I deserved it. That was the hardest part. Accepting that needing help didn't make me a failure. It made me human. David wiped his eyes roughly. How do I know this is real? How do I know you're not just helping me because you feel obligated? Noah pulled out his phone, showed David a photo. Mia at her 8th birthday party, surrounded by friends, holding a science trophy from her school's fair. Smiling the way children should smile, without worry, without fear. That's my daughter. She's alive and happy and thriving because you helped us when we needed it most. This is an obligation. This is gratitude. This is paying forward what you started. Let me help you the way you helped me. David broke then, the tears coming fast and hard, the kind of crying that released years of accumulated pain. Noah let him, understanding that sometimes people needed to fall apart before they could start rebuilding. By the time David left that afternoon, he was enrolled in the program with a plan: temporary housing, job placement assistance in restaurant management, and connection to other business owners in the peer network who'd rebuilt after failure. But more than that, he had hope. Real hope. The dangerous kind that made you vulnerable but also made you alive. That night, Noah told Celeste the story over dinner at a restaurant she'd insisted on taking him to, a fancy place where the servers made more than Noah used to in a month. "That's extraordinary," Celeste said, her eyes bright. "The circle completing itself. Your first success story being someone who helped you. It felt like the universe was telling me something, like validation that this all matters, that kindness really does ripple forward. Or maybe it's just a reminder that we're all one bad day away from needing help, that the line between helper and helped is thinner than we want to admit." They talked late into the evening, the conversation ranging from program strategy to personal fears to the strange intimacy that came from building something meaningful together. At some point, Noah realized that Celeste had become more than his boss, more than his mentor. She'd become his friend. "Can I ask you something personal?" Noah said as they were leaving. "Of course. Do you ever regret it, taking the chance on me? All the headaches and controversy and risk?" Celeste stopped walking, turned to face him under the streetlight. "Not once. Not even for a second. You've exceeded every expectation I had, Noah. You've built something extraordinary. You've changed hundreds of lives. You've changed me." "Changed you how?" "You reminded me why I do this, why I fight the board, why I push for programs that aren't immediately profitable, why I risk my reputation on long-shot investments in human potential. I'd gotten cynical. You made me hopeful again. I'm not that special." "Yes, you are. You just don't see it yet. But you will. Eventually, you'll understand that the waiter who remembered names was always the director you became. You didn't change. You just finally got a platform that matched your capabilities." Noah didn't know what to say to that, so he just said, "Thank you for everything. Thank you for proving me right. Best decision I ever made." But 3 weeks later, everything nearly fell apart. Celeste collapsed again. This time more serious. This time the doctors found something the first collapse had masked, a heart condition, genetic, progressive, treatable, but not curable. She needed surgery, needed months of recovery, needed to step back from the company entirely for at least 6 months. The board moved immediately to capitalize on her absence. Emergency meeting, whispered conversations, barely concealed ambition. They wanted to restructure, to install a new CEO, to push Celeste out while she was vulnerable. And the Second Chances initiative was first on their list of programs to cut. Margaret called Noah into her office the day after Celeste went on medical leave. Her expression was grim. "They're going to kill the program," she said without preamble. "The faction that's always opposed it sees this as their chance. They're arguing that without Celeste's protection, the initiative is unsustainable, too expensive, too risky. But the results don't matter to them. This isn't about data, it's about power. Celeste's enemies want to dismantle everything she built, and your program is the most visible symbol of her leadership." Noah felt the familiar terror rising. "What do I do?" "You fight. The board meeting is Thursday. You'll have 15 minutes to make your case, but Noah, understand, they've already made up their minds. The votes are there to shut it down unless you can change at least 3 people's opinions. That's nearly impossible." "So you're saying it's over?" Margaret's expression was fierce. "I'm saying the odds are terrible, but I've seen you beat terrible odds before. That speech you gave when you walked out of the boardroom, that's what changed my mind. So do that again. Make them see what I see. Make them understand what's at stake." Noah spent the next 3 days preparing. He gathered every story, every data point, every piece of evidence that the program worked. He called participants, asked them to write testimonials. He created a presentation that was part spreadsheet, part moral argument, part desperate plea. But he also knew Margaret was right. This wasn't really about evidence. It was about politics. It was about powerful people using Celeste's illness as an opportunity to reshape the company in their image. Wednesday night, Noah couldn't sleep. He sat in his apartment, a nicer apartment now, 2 bedrooms, in a better neighborhood, everything the job had made possible, and thought about what he'd say tomorrow. How do you convince people who've already decided? How do you make them care about something they've chosen not to care about? Mia found him at 2 a.m., still sitting in the dark. "Can't sleep?" she asked, climbing into his lap even though she was getting too big for it. "Big meeting tomorrow. Important one. The one where they might close your program?"
He tried to shield her from the stress, but she was too perceptive. Yeah, that one. What are you going to tell them? I don't know yet. I have all this data, all these stories, but I don't think they care. I think they've already decided. Mia was quiet for a moment, then said something that cut through all his anxiety. When Mommy died, you told me that sometimes the only thing we can control is whether we tell the truth. That even if the truth doesn't change anything, we still have to say it because that's what brave people do. Noah's throat tightened. He had said that the day after Emily's funeral when Mia asked if Daddy could bring Mommy back. You're right. You're absolutely right. Then just tell them the truth tomorrow, not the version that makes them happy. The real truth. If they still vote no, at least you didn't lie to make them comfortable. From his 8-year-old daughter came the clarity he'd been missing. He didn't need to convince them. He just needed to tell the truth and let the chips fall where they may. Thursday morning, Noah walked into that boardroom for the 3rd time in a year. 12 faces, most of them hostile. Margaret at the head of the table, her expression carefully neutral. An empty chair where Celeste should have been, her absence like a wound. Mr. Reyes, the chairman said, you have 15 minutes to explain why we should continue funding the Second Chances Initiative in Ms. Ward's absence. Noah set down his laptop, his carefully prepared presentation. Then he made a decision. He closed it. He didn't need slides. He needed truth. I'm not going to show you data, he said. Not because the data isn't good, it's extraordinary, but because you don't actually care about data. If you did, we wouldn't be having this meeting. So instead, I'm going to tell you what this program really is and what shutting it down really means. The room went silent. Margaret raised an eyebrow but didn't interrupt. This program is insurance. It's the insurance that when your luck runs out, when you make one wrong move, when life knocks you down through no fault of your own, there's someone who will help you back up. Every single person in this room is one catastrophic illness, one bad investment, one piece of terrible luck away from needing exactly what this program provides. The only difference between you and the people we serve is that you haven't had your bad day yet. Several board members shifted uncomfortably. You think shutting this down saves money? It doesn't. It just moves the cost somewhere else. Emergency rooms, police, homeless shelters, incarceration. Every person we don't help becomes someone else's problem, and that problem costs society 10 times what our program does. But those costs don't show up on your quarterly reports, so you don't care. Mr. Reyes, the chairman started, but Noah kept going. I used to be one of those people you'd have thrown away. I was a waiter making poverty wages, a single father barely surviving. If Celeste Ward hadn't seen something in me, I'd still be there, or worse. And every person in this room would have driven past me on the street and never thought twice. That's what you're really voting on today. Whether people like who I was deserve a chance to become who I am now. Whether you believe that human potential matters more than short-term profits. He paused, let the words sink in. Celeste Ward built this company on the principle that we have responsibilities beyond shareholder returns. That success means investing in people, not just technology. That corporations can be forces for good if we choose courage over comfort. This program is the purest expression of that principle. And shutting it down tells the world that you never really believed in it. That it was just nice-sounding rhetoric you tolerated while Celeste was here to insist on it. Noah looked at each board member in turn, making eye contact, refusing to let them hide. So vote however you want. Kill the program if that makes you comfortable. But understand what you're really voting for. You're voting to be the kind of company that abandons its principles the moment they become inconvenient. The kind of company that only cares about people when it's profitable. The kind of company that Celeste Ward has spent her entire career trying not to be. He gathered his unused laptop. I'll be in my office. When you vote to shut us down, I'll clean out my desk and be gone by end of business. And I'll spend the rest of my life telling everyone who'll listen that Ward Industries talks about responsibility but doesn't mean it. That's my truth. Do with it what you want. Then he walked out for the second time in his career, leaving 12 stunned executives and one speechless Margaret Vance behind. He made it to the elevator before his legs started shaking. Made it to his office before the full weight of what he'd just done hit him. He'd basically told the board to go to hell. He'd accused them of hypocrisy and cowardice.
He'd guaranteed his own termination. But God, it had felt good to tell the truth. An hour later, his phone rang. "Margaret, you're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest," she said. "Probably both." "What did they vote?" "They didn't." "What?" "After you left, I reminded them that everything you said was true, that shutting down the program for political reasons makes us exactly what he accused us of being. Then I said if they voted to kill it, I'd resign from the board and make sure every journalist in the city knew why." Noah's heart was pounding. And 3 other board members said they'd do the same. Turns out your speech reminded a few people why they got into business in the first place. The vote was tabled. The program continues. You keep your job. But Noah? Yeah? Stop making me defend you by insulting the entire board. My heart can't take it. Noah laughed, the sound somewhere between relief and hysteria. "I'll try. No promises." That night he called Celeste from her hospital room. She was recovering from surgery, her voice weak but present. "I heard you terrorized the board again. Word travels fast. Margaret called me. Said you gave them hell. Said you might be the only honest person in the building." "I just told them the truth. I'm tired of pretending to respect people who don't deserve it." Celeste laughed, then winced. "That's my influence. Or maybe that was always you. Either way, I'm proud. The program survives, you survive, and you did it without compromising. That's the real success. How are you feeling?" "Tired, scared, grateful. The surgery went well, but recovery is long. 6 months minimum before I can work full-time again. Maybe longer. The company will be here when you get back. I know, because people like you and Margaret will make sure it stays true to what it should be. That's what I needed to know before I could rest. That it wouldn't all fall apart without me." They talked until Celeste got tired, her voice fading. Before she hung up, she said, "Noah, thank you for everything. For being exactly what I saw in that diner. For never letting them make you smaller. For proving that I was right." "You were always right," Noah said softly. "About all of it." After the call ended, Noah sat in the quiet apartment and thought about the journey that had brought him here. From invisible waiter to program director. From barely surviving to actually thriving. From having nothing to having enough. But the most important change wasn't the money or the title or the respect. It was that he'd remembered how to hope. How to believe that tomorrow could be better than today. How to see himself as worthy of the chances people had taken on him. That was the real gift Celeste had given him. Not the job. The permission to believe in himself. And now it was his job to give that same gift to everyone who walked through his door, looking for someone to see them the way he'd been seen. One person at a time. One story at a time. One life rebuilt at a time. The circle completing itself over and over, forever forward. The months that followed were the hardest and the best of Noah's life. The program continued to expand, now serving over 600 people across 5 cities, with plans to add 2 more locations by year's end. The success rate remained stubbornly, impossibly high. 94% of participants still engaged 6 months after enrollment, 87% employed or in training programs, 79% reporting stable housing. But the work was relentless. Noah split his time between administration and direct service, between board presentations and intake interviews, between managing a team of 35 people and sitting across from someone who'd lost everything and needed to believe they could rebuild. The balance was precarious, held together by sheer will and too much coffee and the knowledge that hundreds of people depended on him not falling apart. Mia was growing up faster than he could process. 8 years old now, in 3rd grade, her mother's fierce intelligence combined with an empathy that seemed to come from somewhere beyond her years. She'd started asking questions about the program, wanting to know the stories, wanting to understand why her father came home exhausted, but somehow more alive than he'd been in the diner days. One Saturday morning in late April, she asked if she could come to work with him. "I want to see what you do," she said over breakfast. "I want to meet the people you help." Noah hesitated. The office was no place for a child. Too many stories that involved addiction and violence and trauma. Too many reminders that the world was harsh and unfair. But Mia had that determined look, the one that said she'd already decided and was just waiting for him to catch up. It might be boring, a lot of paperwork and meetings. "I don't care, I want to see." So he brought her. cleared it with HR, arranged childcare coverage in the break room for when he had confidential meetings, introduced her to his team. Patricia immediately adopted her, showing her the database systems and explaining in age-appropriate terms how they tracked participant progress. Robert taught her about data visualization, letting her create colorful charts from anonymized success metrics. But the moment that changed everything came when David Chen stopped by for his 6-month check-in. David had transformed over those months. The defeated man who'd sat in Noah's office in February was gone, replaced by someone who stood straighter, smiled easier, carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd survived the worst and come out whole. He'd found work as a restaurant consultant, helping other owners avoid the mistakes that had cost him everything. He'd reconnected with his daughter, who he hadn't spoken to in 3 years. He'd started rebuilding slowly, carefully, sustainably. "Noah," David said warmly, then noticed Mia sitting in the corner with a book. "And who's this?" "This is my daughter, Mia. Mia, this is Mr. Chen. He's one of the people in our program." Mia looked up, studied David with that intense gaze children had when they were figuring something out. "Are you the one who helped my dad a long time ago?" David's eyes widened. "You told her?" "She knows the important stories." Mia stood, walked over to David with the kind of seriousness that would have been funny if it weren't so earnest. "Thank you for helping my dad when he needed it. He says you're the reason we had a home." David's eyes filled with tears. He knelt down to Mia's level. "Your dad helped me too, when I needed it. That's how it works. People help each other, and the help keeps going around in circles." "Like butterflies," Mia said. "What?" "Butterflies migrate in groups, and the older ones teach the younger ones the route. Then those butterflies teach the next generation. That's what you and Daddy are doing, teaching people the route so they can teach other people." The simplicity of it, the clarity, hit Noah like a physical force. That was exactly what they were doing, not just helping individuals, but creating a knowledge transfer system where people who'd survived taught others how to survive, who taught others, in an endless chain of past-forward wisdom. David was openly crying now. "That's beautiful. That's exactly right." After he left, Mia turned to Noah with a thoughtful expression. "Daddy, you're teaching people the same thing Celeste taught you, right? How to believe they deserve help." "Yeah, baby, I guess I am." "Then you should tell her. She probably needs to hear it right now." Celeste was still recovering, still months away from returning full-time, but Noah had been visiting her every week at her home, a penthouse apartment that was somehow both luxurious and surprisingly cozy, filled with books and photos and evidence of a full life beyond the CEO persona. That afternoon, with Mia in tow because Mrs. Chen was visiting her sister, Noah rang Celeste's doorbell for the first time with his daughter beside him. Celeste answered wearing comfortable clothes, her hair loose, looking more human and vulnerable than Noah had ever seen her. Her eyes went immediately to Mia. "So this is the famous Mia. I've heard so much about you." Mia, never shy, extended her hand formally. "Thank you for helping my dad, and for the butterfly book. I still read it." Celeste's smile was genuine. "You're very welcome. Would you like to see my telescope? I have one on the balcony. Your dad tells me you like science." While Mia explored the telescope under Celeste's patient guidance, Noah stood at the window overlooking the city and marveled at the strangeness of his life. 2 years ago, he'd been invisible. Now he was in a billionaire's apartment, watching his daughter learn about celestial navigation from the woman who'd changed everything. After Mia was thoroughly engrossed in identifying constellations despite it being daytime, Celeste joined Noah at the window. "She's remarkable," Celeste said softly. "Emily would be so proud." "You know about Emily?" "I know everything about you, Noah. I did my research before that night at the diner. I knew about the accident, about Mia, about how hard you'd fought to keep her safe. That's why I knew you were the right person. Anyone can be kind when life is easy. You stayed kind when life was impossible." Noah felt his throat tighten. "I visited you today because I wanted to tell you something. The program is working, not just working, thriving. We've helped over 600 people in 18 months. But more than that, we've created something sustainable. The people we help are helping others. David Chen is mentoring 3 other former business owners. Maria Santos is running a support group for single mothers. Thomas Wright teaches coding classes every Saturday. It's become self-perpetuating, exactly like you envisioned. I knew it would, because you built it that way. No, because you gave me permission to build it that way. You taught me that I deserved a chance, and I taught them the same thing, and they're teaching others. It's the same lesson, passed forward in an endless chain. Mia called it butterfly migration today, and she's right. We're teaching people the route. Celeste wiped her eyes. That's beautiful. She's a wise child. She's her mother's daughter, and she wanted me to tell you something else. Noah turned to face Celeste directly. She wanted me to tell you that you need to hear this too. That you deserve the help you're getting, that taking time to recover isn't weakness, that the company will survive without you because you built something strong enough to withstand your absence. That's the real test of leadership, whether it works without you. I'm terrified it will work too well, that they won't need me anymore. They'll always need you, just differently. The way the program still needs me, but doesn't need me to do everything. You taught me to build systems that work without constant supervision. Now trust your own advice. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Mia point out features on the telescope to an imaginary audience, already teaching even though no one was listening yet. How's Margaret treating you? Celeste asked. Like a parent who's proud but won't say it out loud. She's tough but fair. The board mostly leaves me alone now. I think they're afraid I'll resign and make them look bad. Good. Fear is a useful tool. Use it strategically. Celeste moved to the couch, gestured for Noah to sit. I'm coming back next month. Part-time at first, building up to full-time by fall. The board wants me to focus on core business and step back from the initiative. They think you've got it handled. Do you agree? I think you've exceeded it. The question is, what comes next for you? What do you mean? The program is established. You've proven it works. You've built a team that's capable and committed. You could maintain this forever, grow it gradually, keep doing exactly what you're doing. Or you could take the next step, which is teaching others to do what you've done, not just within Ward Industries, but across the industry. Companies are watching us, Noah. They're seeing our success rates, our retention, our outcomes. They're asking how we did it. You could consult, could train, could help other organizations build similar programs. You could scale this beyond anything I imagined. The idea was overwhelming and thrilling in equal measure. I don't know if I'm ready for that. You weren't ready to be director either. You did it anyway. That's who you are. Someone who does the hard thing because it matters, not because it's comfortable. Before Noah could respond, Mia came running back into the room. Celeste says there's a comet coming next month. Can we watch it together? The three of us? Noah looked at Celeste, who smiled. I'd like that very much. The comet viewing became a regular thing. Once a month, Noah and Mia would visit Celeste's apartment, and they'd spend evenings on the balcony looking at stars while Mia asked impossible questions, and the two adults who'd changed each other's lives talked about everything and nothing. It was during one of those evenings in June that Celeste made an announcement. I've been thinking about succession planning, she said, while Mia was absorbed in sketching constellations. Not because I'm going anywhere soon, but because my health scare taught me that assumptions about tomorrow are dangerous. Makes sense. I want to create an endowment, separate from Ward Industries but funded by it. The Second Chances Foundation. Its sole purpose would be to fund programs like ours, to train other directors, to spread the model. I want you to run it. Noah nearly dropped his coffee. What? Not immediately, not even soon, but eventually. You'd still oversee our program, but you'd also build the infrastructure to help others create their own. Training programs, consulting, grants, research. Everything needed to make this approach standard practice instead of an exception. That's enormous. That's necessary. Right now, everything depends on you. If you get hit by a bus tomorrow, the program might survive, but the vision dies with you. This way, we preserve what you've built and multiply it. We turn one success story into 100. I need to think about it. Of course. But Noah, understand what I'm offering. Not just more work, though it will be that, but real influence. The ability to change how an entire industry thinks about corporate responsibility. That's rare. That matters. Over the next few months, as Celeste gradually returned to work, and the Second Chances initiative continued to grow, Noah thought about the foundation, about what it would mean to step into that larger role, about whether he was ready to become the kind of leader who influenced industry-wide change instead of just running one excellent program. The decision became clear on a rainy night in September, almost 2 years to the day since that evening at Old Maple Diner. Noah had maintained his one-night-a-week shift at the diner, more ritual than necessity now. Pete had sold the place 6 months ago to a young couple who kept the name and most of the staff, who treated Noah like a mascot more than an employee, but didn't mind him coming in to work the late shift occasionally. On this particular Tuesday, Noah was working the floor when a woman walked in around 11 p.m. She sat alone at a booth, ordered coffee and pie, barely touched either. She looked exhausted in a way Noah recognized, the exhaustion of someone working 3 jobs, juggling impossible responsibilities, trying to hold everything together with fraying rope and desperate hope. Noah refilled her coffee without being asked. "Everything okay?" She looked up with surprised eyes, as if she'd forgotten other people could see her. "Just tired. Long day." "I get that. I've had a few of those." She smiled weakly. "I'm sure you have. Can I get the check?" Noah brought it. She paid exact change, no tip. He understood. He'd been there. Money so tight that every dollar had a predetermined purpose. No room for generosity, even when you wanted to show it. After she left, Noah cleared the table and found something underneath her plate. A napkin with a note scribbled in exhausted handwriting. "Thank you for being kind when I felt invisible. You have no idea what that meant tonight." Noah stood there holding that napkin, and suddenly he was back 2 years ago, finding Celeste's envelope, feeling the same mixture of confusion and hope and fear. The circle completing itself again, but this time with him in Celeste's role, the one offering kindness without expecting anything back. He pulled out his phone, typed a message to the number the woman had left on the check for the receipt. "My name is Noah Reyes. I run a program that helps people who are struggling. If you're interested, call me tomorrow. If not, that's okay too. Either way, I see you. You're not invisible." Then he finished his shift, drove home, and found Mia still awake despite it being past midnight. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. "I was waiting for you. I wanted to hear about your shift." He told her about the woman, about the napkin, about sending the message. Mia listened with that intense focus she had, processing, understanding things beyond her years. "Are you going to help her?" she asked. "If she calls, yes. If she doesn't, I'll respect that too. Sometimes people need time to believe they deserve help. Like you did. Like I did." Mia was quiet for a moment, then said something that crystallized everything Noah had been wrestling with. "Daddy, remember when I asked if you were going to be different when you got the new job?" "I remember. You're not different. You're just more you. The you that was always there but didn't have the chance to show it. And now you're helping other people become more themselves too." Out of the mouths of children came wisdom that adults spent years searching for. Noah pulled Mia into a hug, overwhelmed by gratitude for this small person who saw him so clearly. The next morning, Noah called Celeste. "I'll do it. The foundation. I'll run it. Not because I'm ready, but because it's what needs to happen next. Because staying comfortable would betray everything we've built." "I'm glad." Celeste's voice was warm with approval. "We'll start small. Build the infrastructure over 2 years while you continue running the initiative, then transition gradually. By the time you're 40, you'll be shaping policy for the entire industry." "That's terrifying." "That's leadership. Get used to it." The woman from the diner did call. Her name was Lisa Tran, 36, a former nurse who'd lost her license due to a prescription error that wasn't her fault, now working retail and food service and cleaning houses, barely surviving. She reminded Noah so much of himself 2 years ago that it was almost painful. The same defeated posture, the same inability to believe anything could change, the same desperate hope fighting with learned despair. He enrolled her in the program personally, walked her through the intake process, explained how it worked, connected her to the peer network. 6 months later, Lisa had her nursing license reinstated, a stable job at a community health clinic, and was mentoring 2 other former healthcare workers trying to rebuild their careers. "You saved my life," she told Noah during her exit interview. "That night at the diner I was planning planning to end it. I decided I couldn't keep fighting. Then you saw me. You actually saw me. That changed everything. Noah felt the weight of that revelation settle in his chest. How many lives had been saved not by grand gestures, but by simple acknowledgement? By someone noticing when someone else felt invisible? I'm glad you stayed, he managed. The world needs you. Someone needed to tell me that. Thank you for being that someone. The Second Chances Foundation officially launched in December, 2 years and 1 month after that night when everything changed. The press conference was held at Ward Industries, with Celeste announcing the $10 million initial endowment, the 5-year plan to establish similar programs in 50 cities, the training infrastructure for future directors. Noah stood beside her, uncomfortable in the spotlight, wishing he could be anywhere else. But when the reporters asked questions, when they wanted to know what made the program work, he found his voice. It works because we don't treat people as problems to solve. We treat them as human beings with dignity and potential who've had bad luck or bad circumstances. We ask what they need instead of telling them. We stick with them through setbacks instead of abandoning them at the first stumble. And we connect them to each other so they build communities instead of competing for scraps. That's not revolutionary. That's just basic human decency applied consistently. The reporter from the newspaper that had originally mocked his appointment pushed back. But Mr. Reyes, your critics say you were unqualified for this position, that Ms. Ward chose you based on sentiment rather than credentials. What do you say to that? Noah looked directly at the camera. I say that credentials are how we filter people out. Lived experience is how we understand who actually knows what they're doing. I was unqualified on paper and perfectly qualified in reality. And every person we've helped was the same, dismissed by traditional metrics, invaluable when given a real chance. That's what the foundation will prove. That talent exists everywhere. We just have to stop being so narrow about how we recognize it. The clip went viral. Within a week, Noah had received interview requests from dozens of media outlets, invitations to speak at conferences, inquiries from companies wanting to replicate the model. The foundation had a waiting list of cities wanting programs before they'd even hired the first regional director. It was overwhelming. It was exhausting. It was exactly what needed to happen. That Christmas, Noah and Mia decorated a tree that was somehow even bigger than last year's. Real, fragrant, covered in lights and ornaments they'd collected over 2 years of actually being able to afford traditions. Mia was 9 now, growing into someone remarkable, someone who cared about social justice and asked hard questions about inequality and wanted to change the world. What do you want for Christmas? Noah asked while they hung tinsel. I want you to keep helping people. That's my present. That's not a present for you, baby. That's just what I do. But it makes you happy. When you're happy, I'm happy. So it is a present. Noah couldn't argue with that logic. So instead, he just held her, this wise, small person who'd survived so much and somehow come through it with her capacity for love intact. On Christmas Eve, there was a knock at the door. Noah opened it to find Celeste standing there with bags of Chinese takeout and a wrapped present. I know you probably have plans, but I wanted to stop by, bring gifts. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Can I come in? They ate dinner together, the 3 of them, talking and laughing and feeling like something Noah couldn't quite name. Not a replacement for the family he'd lost, but maybe the beginning of a new kind of family, chosen rather than given, built on shared purpose and mutual respect. After Mia went to bed, Celeste handed Noah an envelope. Not a contract this time. A Christmas card with a handwritten note inside. 2 years ago, I walked into a diner looking for someone. I found you. You've exceeded every hope I had, Noah. You've built something extraordinary. You've changed hundreds of lives. You've changed mine. Thank you for proving that my instincts were right. Thank you for being brave enough to say yes when every reasonable person would have said no. Thank you for reminding me why this all matters. Merry Christmas. C.W. Noah's eyes blurred. Thank you for seeing me, for taking the chance. Thank you for being worth the chance. The years that followed were a blur of growth and challenge and slow, steady success. The foundation expanded to 30 cities by year 3, 50 by year 5.
The model was replicated by other companies, adapted and improved, becoming industry standard rather than exception. Noah became a recognized name in corporate philanthropy, speaking at conferences, advising policymakers, training the next generation of program directors. But he never forgot where he came from. He maintained that one shift a week at the diner until Pete retired and the new owners finally convinced him they didn't need the help. He kept his Friday personal contact day, refusing to become so administrative that he lost touch with the actual work. He brought Mia to the office regularly, letting her see firsthand what it meant to build something that mattered. And once a month, without fail, he had dinner with the people who'd been there from the beginning. Maria Santos, now running her own program for single parents. Thomas Wright, teaching coding at a community college. David Chen, who'd opened a new restaurant, smaller, sustainable, successful. Marcus from the peer counseling team, 5 years sober and studying to become a therapist. They called themselves the First Circle, the original participants who'd proven the model worked. They stayed connected not out of obligation, but out of genuine friendship, born from shared struggle and mutual support. On a Tuesday evening in November, 5 years after everything began, Noah walked into Old Maple Diner for the last time. The new owners were selling, the building being torn down to make room for condos. It felt right somehow that Noah should be there for the closing, that he should say goodbye to the place where his life had changed. He sat in the same booth where Celeste had sat that night, ordered the same pie he'd served her, let himself remember what it felt like to be invisible and desperate and one bad day from collapse. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Mr. Reyes, I saw you speak at the conference last week. Your story gave me courage to apply to your program. Thank you for sharing it. Noah smiled. The circle expanding, rippling outward, touching people he'd never meet, creating change he'd never directly see. Another text, this one from Mia. Daddy, don't forget I have my science fair tomorrow. You promised you'd be there. Wouldn't miss it for the world, he typed back. I'm always there for the important things. And he meant it. Because the true measure of success wasn't the programs launched or the lives changed or the recognition earned. It was whether he'd kept his promises to the people who mattered. Whether Mia grew up knowing her father was present, engaged, invested in her life. Whether the people who'd taken chances on him knew those chances had been worth it. As Noah finished his pie and prepared to leave the diner for the last time, he saw his reflection in the window. Not the exhausted, defeated man who'd worked here 5 years ago, but someone who'd grown into his potential, who'd earned his place, who'd proved that the critics had been wrong about everything that actually mattered. He left a $100 tip for the staff, far more than the meal cost, because he remembered what generous tips had meant when he was the one serving. Then he walked out into the November night, the air cold and sharp and full of possibility. The Honda had been replaced by a reliable sedan. The apartment had been upgraded to a house with a yard where Mia could play. The funeral suit had been joined by a professional wardrobe, but the most important changes weren't visible. They were internal. They were about believing he deserved good things, about understanding that needing help didn't make him weak, about knowing that his worth wasn't determined by his worst days. Noah drove home through streets he knew by heart, past the community center where the program was based, past the park where he and Mia spent Saturday afternoons, past all the landmarks of a life rebuilt from ruins. Mia was waiting when he got home. Her science project spread across the kitchen table, something involving plant growth and water quality, ambitious and thoughtful, and likely to win awards because she'd inherited her mother's brilliance. How was the diner? She asked. Sad, but good. Everything ends eventually. The important thing is what you build during the time you have. Deep thoughts, Dad. I have my moments. He sat beside her, examined her project. This looks amazing. Tell me about it. And she did, her voice animated and passionate, explaining her hypothesis and methodology and findings with the confidence of someone who'd never been taught to doubt her intelligence or potential. Watching her, Noah realized this was the real success, not the program or the foundation or the recognition. This. His daughter growing up secure and loved and unafraid to take up space in the world. His daughter who'd never have to feel invisible, never have to wonder if she deserved help, never have to choose between dignity and survival. That was the gift Celeste Ward had given him, passed forward now to Mia, who would pass it forward to others in ways Noah couldn't predict or control. The
the circle completing itself over and over, forever forward. Later that night, after Mia was asleep, Noah sat in his home office and opened his laptop. He'd been writing his story for months now, trying to capture what had happened, how it had happened, why it mattered. Not for publication, he wasn't sure he wanted to share it that publicly, but for himself. For Mia. For anyone who felt invisible and needed to know that change was possible. He typed the final paragraph. 5 years ago, I was a waiter counting singles and hoping for tips that would let me feed my daughter. Today, I run a foundation that's changed thousands of lives. The distance between those two people seems impossible, but it was crossed one step at a time, one choice at a time, one act of courage at a time. The woman who left me a $0 tip changed everything, not with money, but with recognition. She saw me. That's all any of us really need, someone who sees us, believes in us, gives us a chance to prove what we're capable of. Some tips change nights, others change lifetimes. Mine changed everything, and now I spend every day trying to do the same for others, passing forward the gift of being seen. The circle never ends. It just keeps expanding, rippling outward, touching lives I'll never know, creating change I'll never directly witness. That's the real legacy. Not what I accomplished, but what everyone I helped will accomplish. Not my success, but their potential unleashed. That's worth every hard day, every moment of doubt, every time I wanted to quit but kept going anyway. Because some things matter more than comfort. Some things are worth fighting for. People are worth fighting for. Always. He saved the document, closed his laptop, and sat in the quiet house thinking about tomorrow. About Mia's science fair, about the foundation board meeting next week, about the 20 new cities requesting programs, about all the work left to do and all the lives left to change. It was overwhelming. It was beautiful. It was exactly where he was supposed to be. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from Celeste. Dinner next week? I want to hear about the expansion plans. And Celeste Jr. sends her love. Noah smiled. Celeste had adopted a daughter 8 months ago, a 6-year-old named Celeste Jr., who everyone called CJ, who Celeste was raising the same way Noah raised Mia, with love and security and the certainty that she deserved every good thing. The two girls had become inseparable, two kids who'd started life with loss and were being given second chances by parents who understood what second chances meant. Absolutely, Noah typed back. Same restaurant where this all started? Perfect. Full circle. Full circle indeed. Noah turned off the lights, checked on Mia one last time. She was sleeping peacefully, her science project notes scattered across her nightstand, her butterfly book still on the shelf, and climbed into bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new people needing help, new stories of struggle and resilience and hope. But tonight he could rest. Tonight he could feel satisfied that the work was good, the impact was real, the circle was expanding. Some tips changed nights. His had changed a lifetime. And every day he worked to change others, one person at a time, one story at a time, one act of recognition at a time. The circle completing itself over and over, forever forward. And that was enough. That was everything. The end.